as he faces J.J. Weatherholt, the Cardinals' second baseman, and he strokes one toward the gap in right center. What a sweet, easy swing that was. That's all the way to the fence. J.J. on his way to second with a leadoff double. Swing and a line drive center field base hit. Here comes J.J. They're going to wave him. Marcy loads up. His throw way up the line. And Burleson moves up 90 feet. Swing and a drive. Nathan Church just belts one out of here. It's a long home run. And the Cardinals extend their lead. It is 4-1.
May did his job and gave us a pretty good look. Fastball, cutter, sinker were really good pitches for him. Didn't land the secondary stuff as much as he would have liked, but still competed extremely well and made pitches when needed. Some hard contact early, but was able to still give us a good look. Some base run mistakes on their end led to outs as well, which was helpful. But overall, did a nice job. We knew we'd play close games, and we have to be good at it. We can't give anything away. We got to take advantage of the opposition, but winning 12-1 would be nice once in a while.
That is Ollie Marmol, audio courtesy of Cardinals TV, alongside Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK. A shockingly interesting game for late April for a team that wasn't supposed to be anywhere near contention, and yet here we are. Cardinals are 14-9. They win 5-3 last night on the road in Miami. They play again in 5 minutes.
Oh my gosh!
Just a random 11-10 midweek game. We'll get into the lineup for that one here momentarily, but Alex, that was a fun one last night, and I think there were a million different takeaways that you could have, but for me, my biggest takeaway was that's the way this team has to win. It's not always going to be pretty. You're probably going to have to overcome some bullpen malfunctions, which have taken place for most of the season.
You could call it bullpen malfunctions.
You're going to need to take advantage of bad defense by the opposition. Guess what? They did that last night as the Marlins were booting the ball over at first base. You're going to need to hit some doubles. That's something that I've been calling for from this team all year long. They're not a big home run power team, despite Nathan Church hitting one last night, but you had Burleson and Weatherholt and Wynn all with a double last night. Their second 3-double game on the season. Second, by the way, in the last 3 days. Hopefully we see more of that as the season progresses. And then you got some decent starting pitching overall. So you add all of it up. You win 5-3 on the road at Miami. Feeling good today, Alex. How did you feel about the win last night?
Look, I mean, you said it right. Like, that was an exciting game. Like, in April, for a team that was labeled a rebuilding team, I had no intentions of watching that game from start to finish. And I think from the second inning on, I was glued in. And that's what this Cardinals team has done for me this year. Everything that you just said is correct. But my takeaway from that game was everything what you just said is why this is not going to be sustainable this season. I know, I'm sorry to be the Debbie Downer, but like...
We got on a minute and 45 seconds ago, bro.
No, it was good enough, man. It was good enough here. No, I mean, like, that's just an exhausting brand of baseball to play, and we've talked about this before.
They want the other team to be exhausted when you play the Cardinals. That's always been the goal.
You heard the manager at the end of the game saying it would be nice to have a 12-1 game every once in a while.
Hard to hold an opponent to one round of our
To be fair, they've had those. It's just the opposite side.
Well, and also they've had those in the 6th inning, but then the bullpen comes in and then 12-1 becomes 12-7 and 12-11, and then you're biting your nails. Like, the fact that you're hoping for, and I don't think the power, we've seen it already this season, is going to be 3 doubles in every single game and home runs. They don't have that type of power. And you're hoping on teams booting balls at first base. You're hoping on teams not making plays in the outfield. That's just a very difficult brand of baseball to play. It was awesome that Dustin May was able to, I think I saw somebody say, lower 10 earned runs off of his ERA in his last 2 outings.
That's correct.
But the fact that they lack power, the fact that you're relying on other teams to make mistakes for you to capitalize, and you cannot rely on anybody but Riley O'Brien and JoJo Romero out of that bullpen, that's going to be a very exhausting brand of baseball to play. And it feels like, I keep saying, you're getting away with it. At some point, man, it feels like that luck disappears.
I do agree with you.
Because
like,
Ryan Stanek giving 34 pitches and putting meatballs down the middle and then missing the strike zone.
We can just cut that guy if this continues to be bad.
That's how you ruin seasons.
You're right. Like, everything you say, it's impossible for me to argue it. Because we've watched baseball long enough to know.
But I should be more excited.
You should. Well, you don't have to be. I think there's 2 different ways to watch this team. Watching for the now and watching for what does it all mean in the future. Watching for the now, dude, it's a fun brand of baseball to watch. It's been productive. Your young players look good, more or less. And
I like how
I was about
he
to,
said
I
it
was
and
about
then
to,
realized,
yeah, I was
like,
gonna say,
wait a
I
minute.
about went to comment and went, well, that Scott guy doesn't look
Can I have a
that good.
follow-up question? How much fun are we having if Jordan Walker reverts back to old Jordan Walker?
not a
lot.
ton, but so far he hasn't.
Yet.
The trend is not in a positive direction,
Okay,
but
sorry.
I mean, I would be pretty hard-pressed to say it's disappointing that he has a 965 OPS on the season.
Oh, no, that's a win.
I would say it's pretty nice to see Burleson back up above 800 so far this year. J.J. Weatherholt is getting on base 38% of the time and already has 4 stolen bases on the season and looks the part of a legit Gold Glover at second base. Mason Wynn, after a putrid start to the season, he's an above-league average hitter again, guys. He's over a 750 OPS right now, and he's also getting involved on the base path. So there are some legitimate signs of progress on the offensive side of things. Dustin May looked good once again last night. T-Bone, I know that was a big thing that you took away from that one. It's been pretty fun, I would say, relative to expectations, which were not high coming into this
T-Bone
season.
wasn't happy.
It's the best start to a Cardinal season in like 4 years.
Which is shocking because they had a good team back 4 years ago.
Well, they said they had a good team.
Well, they had teams with like even higher expectations than this one. That's why it's shocking.
But their stars didn't perform then either.
And to your point on it being kind of fun so far, I thought they'd look kind of like what the Mets offenses looked like in their 12-game losing streak. I mean, that's why our 11-game losing streak. That's why I brought up on opening day, my T-Bone 3, they'd have the worst slugging percentage in baseball because I thought this offense would suck. And it hasn't so far. But yeah, my big takeaway from last night, I said this after Dustin May's second start when he got rocked again. And I said the biggest project for Dusty Blake and the pitching staff, or the coaching staff on the pitching side, is to fix their biggest offseason acquisition in Dustin May. And they seem to have figured it out. Now, he didn't go extremely deep in the game. 5 1/3 was a pretty solid outing for him.
Needed those 3 more pitches.
I would have pushed him, but I look at his stuff and they seem to have just abandoned his breaking stuff. Right, the sweeper was used 24% of the time through his first 2 starts, and it's now dipped to 17%. The curveball, which he talked about trying, was at 10%. It's dipped a little bit below 7%. They're just saying, dude, the sweeper moves well, but let's just go fastballs, right? Let's vary the difference between the fastball, the sinker, and the cutter. Let's just mix those 3 pitches.
He's Lance Lynn.
And it's working. And he's a Lance Lynn that throws harder, which is nice. So I like what we're seeing from him over the last 3 starts. He looks like pre-injury Dodger Dustin May, which is a huge win for the Cardinals because that's the guy that they were willing to pay the money to in the offseason to get him to be that guy so they can potentially trade him at the trade deadline.
I mentioned this when I was on with Derek Gould on the best podcast in baseball. I was on that earlier this week.
He was the special guest on it.
You can't make the playoffs in April, but you can sure as hell miss out on the playoffs based upon what you do in April. Alex, how did the Blues do when they screwed up the first month of their season?
Come on, man. The body's not even cold yet.
So not well. Look at the Mets. They're done. No team has ever lost 12 consecutive games and made it to the playoffs in that same season. The Mets are done. You can stick a fork in them. It is April 22nd.
Can we go
they ain't making the playoffs this
Lindor
year.
then? You think he'll be available?
Honestly, I think there's at least a chance. I don't think that the Cardinals will be the team that makes that move, but I think there's a chance that he's available at some point. The Kansas City Royals, not feeling great, boys.
Yeah.
I don't think they're probably going to make the playoffs this season. They're 8-16. They stink. The Astros, I've seen them do this before, so I'm not ready to stick the fork in them. But
I'm going to call them dead. I think
they're
injured.
9-16. They've got some horrible injuries. I don't know when they're going to get healthy. The Phillies are 8-15. Like, the Rockies at least were expected to be this bad, but they stink. These teams with these rotten starts, they are so far behind the 8 ball that it's going to take a pretty hellacious tear for them to get back into it. Meanwhile, the Cardinals, I don't know where it's going from here, man. I don't think they're going to be a legit playoff contender when we get to August. But they've at least put themselves into position where it's a thought. And I thought they would be a lot more in the Phillies, Giants, Mets range than where they're at right now.
Look, I thought on April 22nd in the offseason, I thought on April 22nd, I would just be getting the cliff notes of Cardinals games the next morning.
Yeah.
I thought I would be watching the recap reel from the broadcast to see what happened and read the box score. I never once envisioned watching from start to finish. And that's credit to this Cardinals team and the exciting product that they have put together. Now, again, I can feel that it's not sustainable, but also look at it and say, long term, it does get you excited about this team. It's just that when I watch them play, when I watch Ryan Stanek have to be forced to stay on the mound until his arm falls off, and then Ollie begrudgingly walking out on the mound, being like, all right, I got to go to Soriano here. That's the part that it's like, man, you have to always outscore your problems. And for a team that doesn't have slug and is going to have to find ways to manufacture it on a consistent basis, that is a hard thing to do for 162. It's easier to do for 20 to 25 games. But when you're talking at 80 and then 90 and then 100 and 110, that's when things start to really struggle.
You guys see the lineup today?
I saw Gorman hitting third.
Yeah, I got a new cleanup hitter.
That's interesting. What's that Marmol guy doing?
Ramon Urias is
That was
batting
terrible.
cleanup for you.
Terrible.
Terrible, man. You tried to roll your R, and your tongue
Look,
didn't
I've
even
been
move.
practicing. It's yes.
That was pretty good.
Thanks, man. That was a
JJ's
double R.
playing, Ivan Herrera's playing,
All
Nolan
right.
Gorman's playing, and then Ramon Urias is playing first base today. Batting cleanup.
Oh, so we're going to be the team that's booting the ball around.
Jose
at first
Fermin's
base.
out there. He's playing in left
course
today.
he is.
Batting
He's been
fifth.
good.
Yeah, you gotta have
Nathan
that
Church hit
power.
a homer last night. He's in right. No Jordan Walker today.
Oh,
no
man.
Alec
Well, his
Burleson
hit
today.
streak's over, so we can't
Also,
talk about
no
it.
Mason Wynn today. Thomas JC starting at shortstop. And then Pedro behind the plate, and Victor Scott is in center field.
really
God
upset
bless
about
you,
this?
Kyle Leahy. Good luck today.
Good luck today. Yeah, you're going to have to win 1-0. Are you upset about this?
No.
Are you upset about this, Mr.
No.
Old Timer?
No, well, no, it's a travel day. You know, this is one of those getaway day lineups.
It is an
It's a-
old timer
It's an
getaway
old
day
It's a
lineup.
TLR lineup right
I
here.
get this right. This was a Tony Cruz special behind the plate,
I do
man.
this on MLB The Show when I have an off day. I got to stack the lineup with bad players.
They're about to play 17 games in 17 days. I'm totally fine with them getting their stud players, Walker, Wynn, and Burleson, a day off of their feet prior to that. You know, I've got no issues with it whatsoever. Now, it's going to make today tough. I don't think that they're probably going to win this game, but man, we've seen stranger things happen. It's a weird season. Who
I would
knows?
say this is our. I don't remember who it was. I think David Sampson's the one who said this to us. Every team's guaranteed 60 wins, and every team's guaranteed 60 losses. And then it's what do you do with the other 40 games?
I think
This is one of
everybody in the history of baseball has said that, but yes.
Yeah, we're
we can
guaranteed-
attribute it to David Sampson if you'd
Wow.
like.
He's the one who said it on air.
My God,
on
the
this
guy
show.
was just trying
I
to
know, I'm
reference
just trying
a
to make
guest
a
from the
point,
show.
Brandon. You had to get your
Man.
2 cents in there.
Golly.
You know what? Just go to break. What the hell are we talking about next? I don't care what I was going to say.
You know what? Will you tell me, buddy? David
I'll tell you
Sampson.
at
What?
break.
Okay,
I'll
cool.
tell you at break.
I really
when
appreciate.
this loser leaves to go get water.
I really appreciate the insight that you provide. This loser forgot his lunch yesterday.
I know. This guy packed everything but the meat to
Yeah,
his sandwich.
He had
a Tommy
cucumbers and
Lasorda quote.
watermelon. It's not a Tommy Lasorda quote.
It is.
David Sampson told us on BK and Ferrario as a special guest that teams are going to win 16, teams are going to lose 60.
The quote is, no matter how good you are, you're going to lose 1/3 of your games. You're going to win 1/3 of your games. And it's what you do with the other third that makes the difference.
Do you undercut everybody in your
He
life?
does. He does.
Yeah.
Do you
That's
just
my wife.
find ways? Do you just find ways to make people feel inferior?
Yes,
Just
I'm
gonna
very
make
good
a
at
point
it.
that this is one of those guaranteed 60 losses, and you had to interrupt. Had to interrupt.
This show is breaking at the seams
Just
right now,
because your
guys.
name's first on this
This show is ripping
It's
like a
really big. It's
I know.
really big
Just
in the
like
logo.
your big ego.
This
Really
sh-
big.
This show is ripping at the pants seams right in the crack. Tight suit pant that you haven't put on in a while.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, in
Surprised they didn't
15
cut you
minutes,
off
we're
there.
going to dive into some
trying to.
NFL quick hitters. Coming up next, 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. I listened to 2 different interviews today with Doug Armstrong. First with TMA, and then the sloppy seconds as he joined the Last Minute Blues podcast, a podcast you'll be able to hear
Wanna beat 'em up.
exclusively on 101 ESPN's YouTube page
mug 'em.
later on this afternoon. So you can check it out there. We've got some clips from that, though, coming up next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Doug Armstrong was on with TMA and the Last Minute Blues podcast earlier today.
Before we go any further, you better apologize to me.
What?
You can't call our show Sloppy Seconds. I don't call Redbird Report Sloppy Seconds.
If you want me to, I can say that you were the third people that he did an exclusive interview with.
Oh, yeah?
Who
was the first?
K-Movie.
You're really going to double down like that?
Well, they were there, so, So I didn't want to waste my one-on-one there when I could get him in our big podcast studio. You know what? You're a sloppy second. God.
I mean, listen, I
just apologize.
If you want me to be accurate, I can report the news as I see
sloppy seconds.
fit.
How about your views versus our views on the YouTube channel? High five. Oh, I can't
That's
high
fair.
five you, Tanner.
That's fair.
Don't shut at me.
I wasn't, man. I didn't want to high five
He's
you.
being an a-hole. I don't got to be tied into that.
Mahomes Longbody says, "What the hell is your problem, BK? We've got a lot of
Who do you
time.
think
that we can
you
get into
are?
with that." Doug Armstrong was awesome today on TMA, and I had an opportunity in the office to listen to what he had to say on the Last Minute Blues podcast. I genuinely think it's well worth your time. They're two very different interviews. They get into different subjects, and if you're interested in the Blues in any way, shape, or form, I think it's worth your time to check out over on the YouTube page. In all seriousness, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. That's where you'll find the latest edition of the Last Minute Blues podcast.
Thanks, buddy.
Alex, you guys did ask about, the team not showing up on time, having a struggle to start out the season, and kind of what went into that. How does he view this season overall? Here's Doug Armstrong. This is from the Last Minute Blues podcast.
For the first 3 months of the year, our top 6 players and probably our top 4 defensemen were having subpar average years.
Yeah.
So it wasn't they were having average years. They were having subpar average years. Why is that? What do we have to do to make sure that doesn't happen again? It's not like, if they were having average years and we were there, then we're just not a very good team.
Mm-hmm.
But none of our best players were having average years. And then when they started to have average second halves or whatever it was, or maybe above average, we were competitive. But to me, that was a little too little too late. And, people talk about, well, it was a lot like the year before. The difference the year before, in my opinion, was, we went into Washington the year before and won a big game. We didn't win the big games that we had to win when we fought our way back in. So I use the analogy we were playing with house money, and then all of a sudden we had to put our own money on the table and we went bankrupt. And so there was just a different feeling.
When we started the season, BK, we talked about none of it matters in terms of the younger pieces. It all mattered about what your best players do. Your best players have to stand above the rest. And I think his answer is spot on because everybody wants to pinpoint either Jordan Kyrou or Pavel Buchnevich or Robert Thomas or Jake Neighbors or Braden Shent. The problem is all 6 of those guys that played your top 2 minutes as forwards, and really you can involve the 4 defensemen. Parayko, Broberg, although Broberg was pretty awesome this season regardless. Parayko, Fowler, Logan Mailloux. And then your goaltending. Nobody played with the competitive fire that they needed in October, November, and December. And what Doug said there at the end was, I thought, the more important factor. Every team goes into the season thinking they have a shot to win the Stanley Cup. And they all understand that to make the playoffs, you've got to bank as many points as possible. Look at what the LA Kings did. The reason the Kings made the playoffs was they banked some points early on in the season. And then when they hit their slump, that's when they fell apart. So for the Blues, they had a group of guys, their best players included, that didn't understand what needed to be played early on in the season. And then when games truly mattered, they fell apart. I remember last year coming out of the Four Nations break, and as great as they played down the stretch, we still didn't believe it. But when they came out of that break, we said they've got to find a way to win versus Winnipeg, Colorado, Seattle, Washington. That is going to put you back into this. And we thought that was a joke. They lost in a shootout to the Jets. They beat Colorado. They beat Seattle. They beat Washington. And the 3 games that mattered most to the Blues, they dropped 2 of them, and both times the players said they weren't ready to play in the first period. So, yeah, you can point the finger at Jordan Kyrou and say, get this guy out of St. Louis. You can point the finger at Pavel Buchnevich and say, pay to make him go away. The problem wasn't an individual. The problem was 7 or 8 of your best players didn't become your best players until February 22nd.
So then that gets us to another question that was asked of Doug Armstrong. This one came from TMA earlier today. You can find their full podcast, their conversation with Doug Armstrong on the podcast page. Those podcasts are sponsored by
Shaver Door Company. Sorry,
And
I was looking to see what the clip was next.
You're good, man. The conversation that they had with him got into Jordan Kyrou, which is a hot button conversation for everybody here in St. Louis, because I would say the consensus opinion that has formed is a guy's got to go. He's a cancer. He can't be here any longer. You got to get him out of the room. He's just not good enough. You can't win with him. I'm not sure that I share that opinion, but that seems to be consensus. Here's Doug Armstrong on the quote-unquote Jordan Kyrou problem.
Yeah, he needs to have a big summer. Obviously, he's a 30-goal scorer multiple times. This year wasn't a good year for him. I'm not. I know the name comes up. I'm more concerned on why he was one of 5 or 6 top players that didn't have a good year. If he was just the only one that didn't perform, then it would be easier. But again, you take away the post-Olympics, which you can't take it away. But up until that point, I would say, did we have anyone in our top 6 having not career years, just their NHL standard years? So my thought with Jordan was he was part of a group of guys that we couldn't get to function at that level, and we have to dig into that. And that's something that Alex and Jim are going to have to figure out, why we couldn't get our best players to perform, not overachieve, just achieve to the level that we expected.
That's something we brought up the other day, Alex, is like, how many players on the Blues actually outperformed what you were expecting? I think there's like 2.
Yeah, if you go now as the season as a whole, you're right. Yeah, there's 2. It's probably Broberg and Hofer, and that's it. If you go off of what he said, though, like, who was performing to the level that was expected early on in the season? Is it odd that I would say Jake Neighbors is probably it? The first 8 games, he had 6 goals.
Yeah, he was great early on.
But then his injury happened, and he was out from October 25th to November 20th, and then he never got back to what he was. Now, again, you're making the excuse for the injuries, which you can't use as an excuse, but, like, that was the problem. Like, if you look at what Jordan Kyrou was at the beginning of the season, Pavel Buchnevich, Robert Thomas was close to being a point-per-game player. He was one of your worst players defensively on the ice in terms of goal differential. And then Jimmy Snuggerud nor Dylan Holloway was themselves. So, yeah, I mean, your top 6 was non-competitive in the first 10 to 15 games of the season.
Agreed. And this gets us into the Kyrou conversation, because he's just one of those players. He's not the only of the players that disappointed this season relative to expectations. And I don't know the explanation for that. I'm not making excuses. I'm truly asking. I don't think anybody on this table knows, but was it a system thing? Was it a lack of play driving thing where, hey, Thomas was hurt early on, and then finally he got his stuff together, and that's why you got to see the best version of Snuggerud and Holloway, but Kyrou didn't really get to benefit from that because he was on the second line at that point in time, which is, again, partially his own blame because his play hadn't warranted or justified getting up on the top line. But when you put all of this stuff together, like, it also begs the question, how much does the coaching have to do with it? Because part of the big thing with Monty in the past has been, hey, you look at his history, his top players perform. Yeah, except for the year where he got fired in Boston, and the top guys weren't performing at that point. I think Jim Montgomery is a really good coach. I do not think he is the problem with the Blues, but I did find it interesting the other day when he said, hey, I didn't coach this team well enough. And then I think on TMA, T-Bone, I think you heard this as well, he said, hey, early on in the season, we had our young defensemen, and they weren't paired with veterans, and we probably should have gone about that a little bit differently looking back. Well, that's a coaching decision that he's critiquing there. You look at the way that they went about things in training camp, where I liked it at the time, but they always had like young players that were playing with veterans, and so there was never any cohesion that was able to grow with these line combinations. And then early on in the season, they were constantly juggling things in the line. So again, that's a coaching decision. I do wonder how much of that pie chart should go to Jim Montgomery this season with the top guys not really finding their stride until the second half.
Yeah, in terms of the defensemen, I actually heard that more along the lines of like they really lacked the ability to have that veteran presence back there. Like missing 2,000 games between Suter and Leddy, I think really hurt them this season in terms of how much you could rely on them to cover up some of your warts. I do think it's fair for people to question Jim Montgomery. People know my feelings about the coach, regardless if it's Jim Montgomery versus other coaches. I do think, though, you can look at it and say, why weren't they ready to go in training camp? Why weren't they ready to go in the preseason games? We all remember those weird preseason games to where the one game that they played against a competitive lineup was against Dallas, where they shipped an entire AHL roster there, and the other games that the Blues played a competitive roster, it was NHL versus AHL. So you really never had that competition of what the NHL season was. The line juggling, I think people can question without any pause,
and none of this means they have to fire him.
No.
It's just fair to question some of these things, like it was fair to question the 6-on-5 last year. They fixed that.
I think the bigger thing that I would question is when Jim Montgomery said that he lost the players for 7 straight games after he chewed them out after a bad performance. That's a problem if that's your roster. If you've got guys that get upset at their coach because he chews them out from a bad performance and then goes on to play 7 straight games without any competitive fire that they need to try and find a way to stop that, you got a roster problem.
I do agree with you. Also, it is the job of any leader to know how to reach his people that he's trying to get to motivate, right? Like, everybody responds differently. I know BT's talked about this on the past. On the show here on the past. He responds to that, to getting his ass chewed out, right? Like that is the way to motivate Brad Thompson. That is not what motivates me. I do not respond well to that. I respond well to being told, hey, these are the expectations. This is what we expect out of you. And here's what we need you to do in order to get there, right? I need the why in things. I need the explanation given to me. And that may make me soft. That may make, like, you can call me whatever name you want. That's how I respond well to leadership. And so, like, somebody chewing me out for something that maybe I did or did not know that was what I was supposed to be doing, that's not going to get me going. And so if you're Jim Montgomery, and I would assume he knows how to motivate these guys. He knows who they are. He knows he's been with this team at that point for a year. If he saw his team wilt in that moment, that is a reflection of the coach. It's also a reflection of the players, but you've got to know how to motivate them.
Yeah.
And that's part of the job for you as a coach.
Yeah, and totally fair criticism. And with Jim Montgomery, I could use the point of, I don't know if he ever really had to do that. Because when he took over from November the previous year, I don't know if they ever really had a ugly performance. You had the coach motivation. You dipped a little bit. You came out of the the Four Nations break, and then you went on your run.
No doubt.
So this was him testing the waters, and he even said so. I thought this was the way to get to him, and he figured it out. And he also said, I'm never doing that again as a coach with this team, because he learned from that. My bigger issue was the competitive fire, the attitude that Doug Armstrong talked so much about on Saturday, saying this team is not like teams I've had in the past that look to be punched in the face. I don't know whether it was Jim Montgomery chewing them out or teams going out there and beating them repeatedly. I mean, you got beat 7-3 on home ice to the Blackhawks.
Agreed.
And they responded with a bad performance against the Kings. The coach said, I can't take any more of this, went to the players. Players would not follow through or lost the room, whatever you want to call it, and then went on to a 7-game losing streak. That's where I look at it and say, that's why the team has a bigger problem.
Agreed. Agreed on all of that. Like, this is one of those also conversations,
it can be both.
not either or conversations, because I do think that this team has a competitive fire problem, and it has for a while. I would also say, I wonder if some of this is just like a generational divide where, yes, Doug Armstrong is correct. This is not the same as the group that he's had in the past. I would say in general, though, players that are coming up today are different than players that came up 20 years ago for a million different reasons. Part of that is technology. Part of that is the money that is associated with the game today as opposed to what it was 20 years ago, right? These guys have generational wealth from the moment that they reach the NHL level for many of them. And that changes things for players. They've also had unbelievable, individualized coaching from the moment that they were 5 years old for many of them. And the Blues are also a very young team overall right now. Whereas 10 years ago, the teams that he's referencing, man, those teams were mostly 30-plus-year-olds. Those were guys that were in their prime, that had their battle scars, and so they responded to things differently. So I think some of this might just be, hey, times are a-changing. Mm-hmm. And Army has talked about this a lot in the past, where he's had to learn how to reach the new athlete. What is the difference between athletes of today and athletes of 20 years ago? And how do I make sure to find them where they're at? I think there might be some of that going on here as well. And people don't have to like that. I'm not telling you got to be happy about, the soft nature of sports nowadays, right? Like you don't have to love that, but you kind of have to accept it. Mm-hmm. Because these are the guys that are playing for you, and you've got to find a way to motivate them.
You got to find the coach that matches the DNA of your roster. Like Paul Maurice can chew out his team after a bad performance, and they will respond accordingly. Marty St. Louis could chew out his team. They'll respond accordingly. You've got to find the right coach that meshes with the players. I believe that Jim Montgomery is a winning head coach in the National Hockey League. So do they. So now they're adjusting the roster to Jim Montgomery, and they've got to find more guys that have the same thought process as he does rather than what didn't work this season.
Out of the top 19 players on the Florida Panthers last year, how many of them do you think were under the age of 26?
It's got to be a small number.
Oh, yeah, because
Two?
Matthew might be the only one, but I don't think he's under. I think he's either
Chuck is 27. Was 27
I thought
last
he was
year.
older.
Reinhardt's older. Barkov's older.
I'll say 2.
I'll say 1.
It was 2. Lundell and
Luosterainen.
Samashkev.
Semeskevich, yeah.
Those are the only 2 last year that were under the age of 27. Meanwhile, you look at the Blues, they're all under the age of 27. So, like, yeah, you're 100% correct, Alex.
The funny thing is, though, is like the guys under 27, I would say, have that competitive fire.
I was just going to say that. Like, look at the guys that are under 27 and think of Jim Montgomery chewing them out. Don't you think they would respond well to that?
I don't know.
I don't know if they would respond, but I think they've got the thing that I would question isn't so much sure, yes, Monty should read the room better, and if chewing out guys doesn't work, you know what? He's now learned that lesson. He won't make that mistake. Yeah. The thing that I would question is the competitive fire, right? Because that doesn't come from the coach. You can say the coach should be able to get that out of guys. That's an individual. I want to go out there and I want to beat you. Yeah. I want to take you on. I want to win that freaking puck battle. And that would be the thing that I would question, not from the under 27 guys. Like I think Holloway, Neighbors, Dvorsky, I think those guys have got that. Yeah. My question would be, does Kyrie want to do that?
And
does Booch want to do that?
Thomas.
Does Thomas? I think at times Thomas wants to do that. I don't know if he's committed to it all the time. Like that would be the thing that like you can't just teach that, right? That is one of those that you either have it or you don't, and if you don't have it, you got to figure out what you're going to do with that guy.
But what also is important is, yes, you want those guys to do it, but if your best guys aren't doing it, then it doesn't matter.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. In 10 minutes, we'll get into questions and answers. 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. You can also check us out and get involved in the YouTube chat at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. It was a bit of a lengthy second inning for Kyle Leahy.
He's going to get to 100 pitches before 3.
He's at 34 pitches. He's allowed 3 hits, 2 earned runs. It's 2-0 Marlins after 2 in the beginning portions of this game. Coming up next, some NFL quick hitters here on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here. The Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Last night, the Cardinals took down the Marlins in Dustin May's start, and they're in the rubber match right now in Miami as they're in the top of the third inning. 2-0 Marlins lead it over the St. Louis Cardinals. Kyle Leahy is on the mound for St. Louis today. We'll keep you updated on the Cardinals score throughout the day today here on 101 ESPN. The Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin Heating and Air Conditioning dealer.
All right, let's dive into some NFL quick hitters. Want to get into this mock draft, which posted earlier today from Peter Schrager here in just a moment. But I want to ask you guys a quick question on the Cardinals broadcast before we get to that. You guys like the in-game interviews that they're doing this year?
Yeah, I think it's smart.
They've got one going right now. That's why I'm asking, because they're talking to Dustin May, and they've had him on for basically the entire half inning, which is not something you typically see.
I think that works for baseball.
Agreed.
I think in other sports like hockey this season, that's a little bit more difficult to do because so much is happening at the time. This one on television, you can kind of weave it in and out of at-bats and whatnot.
I've really enjoyed it. I think it's great. They've had Ollie Marmol where they ask him like 5 or 6 questions in half an inning.
I won't lie. I enjoy that one because I like when I see him get an antsy as the inning starts to snowball. Like when they were in Houston, I think it was Palante gave up a home run during the interview, and I could go, oh yeah, Ollie's like getting a little antsy over there that he's still being asked questions.
I would be curious to see like, why didn't this happen in the past, and why is it happening right now?
Well, I'm so glad
I think why it's happening now is because of where the television state is at for baseball, and like this is how you build your product up.
Yeah,
like, this is what people want.
The Cardinals now have to care about what the TV broadcast is. Previously, they didn't.
That's right.
I think that's why it happened. Yeah. I just had this conversation with Mike Ryder, our executive producer, yesterday. I said, I think it was Cardinals already got that, whatever it was, $60 million paycheck. FanDuel, we want to do in-game interviews. That's cute, but no, we've already got your money. Now it is, oh crap, we've got to sell this, right? We have to build this product, and it's smart, and they are good interviews. And I enjoy the fact that it's not just the manager, right?
Yeah,
it's not
just
just
Dusty Blake. It's
exactly
Brant Brown. Like they've got different guys that are cycling through. I think it's been great.
The Blues tried that this year too. They've never done this before. Well, they'll interview a player during a commercial break of a period, and so this season Joey would get a player on home games, and they would come over during the TV timeout, and he would interview him, and then they would return from the break with it.
That's cool.
They've never done that before. So why are they doing that? I think it's what Tanner just said.
All right. Back to NFL quick hitters here on BK and Ferrario.
I like this conversation more, man.
That was fun.
Let's talk ESPN hockey coverage.
Peter Schrager, I think, is as plugged in as just about anybody going right now. I think he's awesome. He's with ESPN.com. And today he put out his last mock draft leading into tomorrow's NFL draft. Number 1 was no surprise. He still had Fernando Mendoza going number 1 to the Las Vegas Raiders. They should not take more than 5 seconds to put in the pick. They will. They'll take the full 8 minutes, but it is what it is. Number 2 is where the draft really begins. He's sticking with David Bailey, the edge rusher out of Texas Tech, Alex. Yeah. It sounds like that is where everybody is headed right now. We had that brief flirtation with Arvell Reese from Ohio State, and it sounds like David Bailey's going to be the pick.
Honestly, I don't think you can go wrong with either one of these, Arvell Reese or David Bailey, and maybe David Bailey is a little bit more polished going into the NFL, so if you're the Jets, you try and get the guy that's there faster.
Number 3, this is the argument we had yesterday. He's got Jeremiah Love, the running back out of Notre Dame. How you feeling about it, Alex?
I think it's a dumb move, but, I understand every point that you made yesterday. I liked what he put in his piece where he said, I wonder if a team like the Chiefs or the Saints could trade up to this. I don't know why the Saints would even entertain trading up to get Jeremiah Love. Oh, okay, so that they don't miss out on him. The Chiefs moving up to that spot as well, but I don't think it's a smart move by the Cardinals, but you know what? If Jeremiah Love is as good as they're making him out to be, then so be it.
Your Rams are the team that I'm wondering about.
About moving up to 3?
3 or 6 to get
6
Jeremiah Love, depending on where he ends up going.
I don't know if you saw the Athletic today.
To get to 3?
They could, maybe not 3, they could, maybe. The Athletic today had all the beat writers do a mock draft, and the guy that does it for the Rams, had them not trading up to 3, but trading into 6 with the Browns, so they could draft the wide receiver out of Ohio State, Carnell Tate. I actually think that one makes more sense than trading up for Love, because they clearly wanted to add another receiver this offseason. Remember, they had that flirtation with A.J. Brown. I think they really like Lemon and Carnell Tate, and if they think Carnell Tate's going to be a true stud that they're going to have on a cost control deal for the next 5 years, I could see them maybe moving up to 6, take that Brown spot so they could draft him.
I thought they were sour on Lemon.
No, don't high five that.
Number 4,
He liked it. Did you see his head
Tennessee,
tilt?
Sonny Styles, the linebacker out of Ohio State. That makes sense. I think that's probably going to be the pick for them. Number 5, Arvell Reese, the guy that we've already mentioned, also from Ohio State. There's going to be a lot of Ohio State players selected in the top 10 this year, ladies and gentlemen. Spencer Fano, tackle out of Utah, is the pick at 6 for the Cleveland Browns. Just give them a lineman.
Yeah, who cares? Cleveland, you're still bad.
Carnell Tate, the wide receiver, also from Ohio State at 7 to Washington. Number 8, how about this? Another Ohio State player.
This is enough
Caleb
already.
Downs,
How'd they not
the
win it all?
safety from the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah.
It's a great question.
How are they so bad?
They have also a top 3 selection for next year's class with Jeremiah Smith, the wide receiver. So
Good.
yeah. The guy that's going 7th in this mock, Carnell Tate, he was the 2nd best receiver on his own team last year, and he's a top 10
I don't see a
pick.
quarterback on Ohio State going in the first round.
I don't know, man. I kind of like Julian Sain.
Oh no, I mean this season.
Oh
this one.
no, but he's not available yet.
I know, man. It was sarcastic.
Okay. At number 9, they have the Chiefs trading out. How about this? So
God,
much buzz
team's
about
terrible.
the Chiefs trading up. Instead, in this mock, he has them trading down, and instead, it's the Dallas Cowboys moving up, trading the 12th and 20th picks for the 9th and 29th picks. So the Chiefs get 2 in the 12 and 20 range. Cowboys move up and down in the first round. They get Mansour Delane, the cornerback out of LSU.
Is that because the Chiefs want Caleb Downs? Or is
No,
it
he said it's because the Chiefs want to be able to pick 20. So the real incentive here is they
get another one.
He believes they could get a similar player at 12 to what they're getting at 9, and he thinks the tackle market will be better at 20 than what it is at 29. So they're able to move up so much that they still, in this scenario, get Reuben Bain at number 12. And then at number 20, they get one of the top tackles, or in this scenario, wide receiver, Omar Cooper Jr. out of Indiana.
Yeah, see, this is the part of the draft that I'm fascinated by when teams like this do these types of trades. And I think in Schrager's thing, there was 2 team trades in the first round. So like
He's also got the Detroit Lions moving up
Yeah.
with the LA Rams.
So that's the part that I find interesting of how these teams see the draft and where it falls. That's where it gets you a little bit more excited.
Yep. Zion Young, edge rusher out of Missouri. He's got Zion going number 31 overall. And quarterback question, Alex, for you. He has the Arizona Cardinals moving back up in the first round to get Ty Simpson at number 32 overall.
You know what?
Simpson
If
and
they-
Jeremiah Love with
I
Marvin
was gonna say,
Harrison.
if they do
I'm telling
that,
you, that'd be fun.
If they do that, then the Jeremiah Love trade makes a lot more sense. If they can get Ty Simpson, I don't think Ty Simpson is going to be anything special, but at least you're getting a quarterback. You've got the elite playmaker, and you're trying to make it seem as if you can be competitive.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, coming up in about 10 minutes, the Blues have stated their expectations for next year. What does it mean for their offseason plans? We'll get into that coming up here just a little bit. Questions and answers next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. In just a little bit, we'll talk about the Blues' goals for 2026 and how they can get there. Doug Armstrong had an interesting statement on that earlier today on the Last Minute Blues podcast. But right now, it is time for your questions. 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. From the 636, guys, if the Blues keep Kyrou and he regresses even further, how much would that slow them down in getting back to championship pedigree?
I don't think it would slow them down. They would just be rely heavily on the development of Snuggerud, Holloway, Stenberg, Carbonneau, because if he regresses and continues to regress, trade value's not there, and he, much like Pavel Buchnevich, is nothing more than a third-line winger for you.
I feel like it hurt them significantly. And the reason I say that is because there'd be no trade value then. You'd be selling pennies on the dollar, which here in Army today doesn't sound like they want to do for anybody. And then the reason I would say it hurts you is then now he kind of takes up a roster spot, right? You lock yourself in with him and add it on top of, which they didn't bring this up in this scenario, but I just assume it, that Butch is not the same guy either. So now I'm stuck with two bad contracts that have to be on my roster, so they take up roster spots.
I just think both are third-line players for you, and you need your young assets to become really good players in your top six.
If he regresses again from this, I think it's a problem because of the money. Like that's $8 million that's tied up into him, $8 million that's tied up into Booch. That's 15% of your overall salary cap space. It's just problematic to have that on your third line. So I do not believe that he's going to regress from where he was this year, though. I don't think that's likely at all. I think he's going to settle in as, 25-plus goal scorer. Now, what value does that bring to the team? You can determine that for yourself, but to me, I don't think this year was what you would expect out of Kyrou in the future. From the 636, what do you think will be the first big move that Chaim Bloom decides to make? Will it be a trade, free agent, etc.? I'm guessing this means first big move to acquire talent, because his first big move was trading Gray, Contreras, and Donnie in the offseason. But in order to acquire talent, I think it'll probably be some kind of a trade. I think they're hoarding talent right now in order to make a move to acquire something in the future. That'd be my guess.
Oh, I was leaning free agency because I think what you see with a lot of these rebuilding teams, they hang on to much of their assets for almost too long, like a Baltimore, for example, and their first splash is to typically try a free agent. See if you can add a free agent, hope all these kids live up to the way that you saw them, and then you go from there. So I would say it's free agency is where he'll do the big splash.
Yeah, mine's trade. I don't think they dive into the free agency waters. I think free agency will be the complementary pieces. The trades will be the big splash that he makes.
Big news for Mizzou. Guard T.O. Barrett has officially committed to Vanderbilt. Last year was a guy that basically saved their season in the second half, but T.O. Barrett entered the transfer portal. Mizzou going in a different direction. T.O. Barrett has committed to play at Vandy next season. I think this is fine for Mizzou. I don't think it's overly concerning. They're in on a couple other guards that could be similar or better to what T.O. Barrett brought to the table. I also just think stylistically he didn't really fit with the direction that they were heading. They need somebody that can shoot a little bit better from the outside. So news from Mizzou, T.O. Barrett, according to Joe Tipton of On3, will be going to Vanderbilt next season. Coming up next, the Blues have stated their expectations for next season. How does it influence their offseason decisions? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So what's the goal for the 2026 campaign for the St. Louis Blues?
Stanley Cup.
As we exit last season and start turning the page toward the next year, Alex, you guys were able to talk about that with Doug Armstrong earlier today on the Last Minute Blues podcast. And I found it interesting as you guys talked to him. He tried to make it clear, listen, are we in a championship window? No. Are we in a spot where we think we can compete? Yes. And T-Bone, I'll have this audio for you here in just a moment. I think where they're at right now, for me personally, and I want to get your thoughts on this before we hear from Doug Armstrong.
Yeah.
I think they are in a spot where it is about growth, kind of similar to the Cardinals, more than it is about like doing everything they can to compete for a Stanley Cup championship next season. How are you personally viewing
so
this?
a little background with this. So Saturday, Doug voluntarily offered the information of, after this season, it kind of forced front office to sit down and rethink the short-term window, which was the 1 year, and then the midterm window, which is the 3 year. That's kind of what he talked about, the in-between there. And he said, looking at that and reassessing where this team is at, that's where they had to go from. And so that's the question that we posed to Doug. And, it tied into Robert Thomas, it tied into Colton Parayko, it tied into all those players. Where I think they are, BK, is what you said. I believe they can compete for a playoff spot. But I also believe that before they can start talking playoffs consistently, they're still in that development stage. And people don't like to hear that. They want to win now. I understand it. But you're going to have to see what another year of Snuggerud looks like. You're going to have to see what another year of Dvorsky looks like. A full year of Stenberg, a full year of Lindstein. You haven't even seen two of their best prospects in the system play pro hockey yet, in Justin Carbonneau and Adam Jiricek. So to me, before you can start talking about consistently being a playoff team like we saw from 2012 all the way up until 21-22 season, you've got to continue that development stage, and that includes Carbonneau and Jiricek and then whatever they decide to do at this year's draft.
Here is what Doug Armstrong had to say about that earlier today on the Last Minute Blues podcast.
I think we should be competing for a playoff spot. I thought we should have this year. Now, it's what we did when it didn't matter that has us somewhat excited, but tempered. But in October, November, where every point is contested because everyone's trying to set their footing, how is Theo going to be? How is Otto going to be? How are the guys going to be that have done it really without much? Like, if you lose, well, who cares? You get a higher pick. If you win, yeah, well, that's great. Like when it really matters, which is just coming out of training camp. So I think we're going to be competitive. I think we can push for a playoff spot. We're going to need good things to happen. We're going to need our two goaltenders to be good. Yeah, I think we can compete. I really do. Now we're going to need everyone to be at their best, and that's that hunger part
and that's where I think they are too. Like, I look at the Kings, I look at the Ducks, I look at the Predators, the Sharks, the Jets, the Kraken. You're in that window of teams. I don't think the Kings were overly incredible this year. They had more losses than they did wins this season. I don't think the Predators are going anywhere positive right now because they've got a lot of aging players on their roster. I think the Sharks are going to be dangerous, but won't get to that level until they get goaltending. The Jets already got internal days of our lives, and the Kraken might be going into a rebuild. So that's the slew of teams that you're in with. But I just listed, 6 teams fighting for one playoff spot. So that's the difficult part. And until you get to that next level, you need a year of more development for these younger players. And frankly, you're going to have to make an aggressive move at some point. And it's just a matter of, do they make that aggressive move in this year's offseason or next year's offseason?
I just look at what they have coming, and I think it's going to be here quickly. Like, I think next year, my expectation would be that you get Jiricek into the lineup.
Oh, yeah. That was one we won't get to, but he basically says, like, as long as he has an incredible camp, they expect him to be a part of this team next year.
I would think Carbonneau is a part of this team next year.
Same category in their minds.
And, like, Snuggie is now in a full season of, let's see it. You're a top-line player. You're not just being incorporated into the lineup. It's time for you to take that step and being one of our dudes.
And they told him at the press conference, or they told us at the press conference that they told Snuggerud next year is going to be the hardest year you play in the NHL because every team knows what what to expect now.
Dvorsky, I would think, is coming into the season planning to be your number 2 center. Now, that could change depending on what they do in the offseason, but I think that's probably their goal, is for him to be the number 2 center. I have no idea who's playing third-line center, but you'll get there when you get there.
Hugh Suter, man.
I think that's at least a possibility.
God, I hope it's not Pavel Buchnevich.
The reason I bring up these names is because there's going to be some growing pains. Like we saw with Logan Mailloux. Logan Mailloux was a good prospect. I think we saw at the end of the year. Good player. It took a lot of time, though, to get there. Early in the season, the growing pains were real, to the point where they had to send him down to the AHL because they just couldn't overcome his significant mistakes where he's just turning it over in his own zone and it's going in the back of your net. That could happen with Juracek. That's realistic. Mm-hmm. You're probably going to see Carbonneau make some really silly plays, like just ridiculously stupid plays. Not because he's a bad player, but because he's young, he's learning on the job, and he's going from the QMJHL to playing at the NHL level against grown-ass men that are going to come after him in a way that he's never seen happen before. So I say all of that to say this. I think you're going to see a lot of learning on the job next year. And that's probably going to lead to some early season struggles again. Now, it could be different than this year, where you're willing to live with those more so than you were willing to live with Thomas not playing up to expectations or Kyrou not living up to expectations and all these things. And you hope it balances out. But I don't know, man. I don't know that my expectations are overly high for the upcoming season. I think I will probably go into next year kind of similar to where I was this season with the Cardinals, where I was higher than a lot of fans are. But I think fans are going to be higher than me on this Blues team. So I'll end up meeting somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to get over my skis and act like this team next year. I thought this season this team could have been a 100-point team because I thought they'd carry over what they did last year for a full 82, and they did not. So I will be a lot more cautious this year. I do think this team, though, can be somewhere between 85 and 95 points. Because I think that's what, if they're going to fix the problem, which was their biggest problem this season in terms of October to January, playing with more passion, and I can only go by their words. Until I see it, that's all I can go off of. Then if you're doing that, then you're talking about a team that had 92 to 94 points. If you avoid a 7-game losing streak and turn it into a 3-game losing streak, you're talking 92 to 94 points. And
that also requires them to go on that crazy stretch in the second half, though. They're playing the way that you're talking, and they don't have that second stretch.
You're spreading those wins throughout October to January.
But what you're doing is you're replacing the 7-game losing streak with a 3-game losing streak. But in order for that math to work, it also requires the second half to be special. Like they're going to have to be much better in the first half, much better, if they're not going to have an all-time great second half the way that they did each of the past 2 seasons.
But if you take the 17 wins that they had in the final 21 games or whatever it is and spread that from October to January, October to December, you're talking
that's just
about
a good hockey team. Like what you're describing is just a good team.
It's a consistent team.
I don't know if you can
be consistent. Do you expect them to be consistent next year?
If they're telling us that that's going to be the main focus, then yeah. If your best players come out there and perform from October to the end of the season, then I absolutely do. If Thomas shows up, if Holloway shows up, if Snuggerud shows up, if your goaltending shows up, and they're ready to play in October, then yeah, you could be a team that picks up 94 points.
But they're going to be counting on big-time contributions from very young players, and that's going to be...
Well, but maybe. I mean, Juracek's playing your third pair.
We saw that with Mailloux, to be fair, and we saw how bad that was with Mailloux.
Understandable, but also, you weren't using Tyler Tucker in a top 4 role. Like, without Mailloux playing in that, they were going with, what was it? It was Parayko, Broberg, Fowler, and Tucker? Or no, Falk was up there.
Yeah. I mean, they had a third pair like you're describing.
Do we think Mailloux's better than Falk?
I truly do not know.
I think down the stretch he was. But you're right.
Those were games that didn't matter.
They're games that don't matter.
I think there's a real chance that Justin Falk is a better player than Logan Mailloux. At this point in Mailloux's career, that may not be the case 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. But today, like if you told me who's better, the 2025, this past season's version of Justin Falk, or the 2026, the upcoming year version of Logan Mailloux, I have no idea what the answer to that is.
I personally think defensively he's a better player than what Justin Falk was. Offensively, he's not giving you 11 goals, but defensively, I don't think he'll be as much of a liability. And Carbonneau, if he's on this team, is playing in a third-line role. The guys that they're going to be, I think I do. Like, they're not going to throw
Who's playing in the second line, then?
That's what I'm saying. It's going to be Pavel Buchnevich. It's going to be Jake Neighbors. It's going to be Dalibor Dvorsky, Thomas Holloway, and Snuggerud.
If your expectation or your hope is that you have playoff expectations going into next year, I can't return with that second line.
But let me be clear.
If you want to have Carbonneau on the third line, I'm cool with that. But there better be a significant upgrade on that second line.
I don't have playoff expectations. I think
Well, if we're
you
going by
can
what
be
the Blues are saying,
competitive.
that is what
He
they're saying.
said that he thinks they can be competitive for a playoff spot.
And
They're not
playoff
going into the season
kind of
where
expectations.
No, but they're not going into the season saying we are a playoff team next year. They're saying we are competitive for a playoff spot. There's a difference.
I think they've got to sell it differently then. I think they've got to be selling, hey, we're probably not a playoff team.
I don't think you need to sell it differently. I think if you're the Mammoth next year, you're expected to be in the playoffs. I think this year the Blues were expected to be in the playoffs because they tasted the playoffs. I don't think they're expecting to be a playoff team. I think they're expecting to be in that lump of teams that may be on the outside looking in because it is the development side of things. Yeah. What I'm saying is I think they can be in that same spot as long as they fix their issues from October to December.
I think there's some truth to that. My skepticism stems from the fact that I don't know that this team's going to be in position to do that.
And if that's
because they are once again relying on so many young players to be in significant positions early in the season, and there will be growing pains from that. There's no way around it. The young players make mistakes. It's just the name of the game, right? It's the nature of how this works for them. And so if that ends up taking place, you're probably going to have some games that are lost because you had young players that made mistakes on the ice that were critical in these games. And then you're once again going to be leaning on this historic second half of the season.
See, I look at it as you're going to be relying on your best players. And if you come back with Kyrou and Thomas and Buchnevich next year, and if they in Holloway and Snuggerud, and if they still don't perform, you've got bigger issues. Like if you're going into the season relying on Carbonneau and Dvorsky and Stenberg, I don't think you're going to have success. To me, they're going into the season next year relying on Thomas and Holloway, along with Jake Neighbors, along with Pavel Buchnevich, along with Jordan Kyrou if he's on this team, and you're relying on Parayko, Fowler, and Broberg. And then you're relying on your goaltending, just like they did this year. And if they underperform, then once again, we're having the same problem of your core pieces are the issues. And that's why I think there's going to be change this offseason because they don't want to go into that same thing. If you run it back next year, you're not doing anything different other than just saying, well, our young guys will be better. I don't think you can do that. I think you have to go out there and find some different faces in that spot.
Yeah. I don't know who those, how you make that happen. Well, other than Kyrou. Like, I think you probably end up moving Kyrou, but
sounds like the replacement's Carbonneau for him.
Yeah, I don't know who the
and that's the question
upgrade is.
That's the question I didn't get to ask Doug, but somebody asked him how much he values moving up in the draft, and the question that I'd have is how much do you value moving out of the first round? Because you've accumulated all of these assets. I think he said they have the most first round picks, or the second most first round picks of any team in the last 4 years. You've accumulated all of these. How much does 3 picks in this year's first round really matter to your team versus going out there and getting an NHL player?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. You guys can check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. The Cardinals are having some technical difficulties
so come
on their
watch us.
broadcast right now. So come on over,
Get on
say
YouTube.
hello. Water's warm over there. A lot of Blues conversations
Yes.
today. youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. Appreciate you guys as always. You can also subscribe to the 101 ESPN YouTube feed. Highly recommend doing so. That is the way that you can see the Last Minute Blues podcast, the Redbird Report, Spread Zone, and then we put a bunch of YouTube shorts up over there as well, so you can have an opportunity to see some of those. So that's all at youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. Chris Kerber, voice of the Blues, joins us in about 15 minutes. But next, the Cardinals have a plan with Victor Scott II. Do you guys believe in it? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. All right, so Alex, in about 10 minutes, we'll talk to Chris Kerber, voice of the Blues. He joins us each and every Wednesday here on the show. The Cardinals have a plan with Victor Scott II. I'm not telling you got to love the plan, but they've got a plan nonetheless.
My guess is people won't love the van.
That's kind of my guess as well. Yesterday, Derek Gould joined us here on the show and said, hey, the plan is for him to be out there regularly. Left field is where you'll see a lot of the rotation. You've already seen some of that, especially with Nathan Church getting more playing time. But Gould had a piece over on the St. Louis Post-Dispatch website today about Victor Scott. Derek Gould wrote the following. They will use playing time in the outfield while they have it. Lars Nootbaar is a month away from returning from the 60-day injured list, and at that point, the competition for playing time in center could tighten. Ollie Marmol saying, quote, when everyone is getting the reps that they need, I don't think changing the playing time is that big of a discussion. So he does not view right now as the time to make any kind of sweeping changes. Do you agree with that assessment? Let's start there and we can kind of work our way around. But do you think that it is the right idea to keep Victor Scott out there regularly right now?
I absolutely do. I think Victor Scott falls under that umbrella of I want to see what this guy is made of, and I'm going to play him as much as I possibly can. Now, making sure that I'm not like running the guy on fumes and then like he just can't go out there and do his job. But yeah, I'm playing him because I think the Lars Nootbaar thing is correct. When Lars Nootbaar is back, he goes into left field, and then it's really a competition in terms of does Nathan Church get a little bit more reps because he's hitting the baseball better than Victor Scott. So yeah, I am all on board with this. Play him every single game that you possibly can to see what he is made of.
Yeah, I'm with Alex. I think right now you continue to just keep throwing him out there, and then you kind of keep rotating that left field between Church and Sajasi right now. Church, because he's kind of running away with it right now. He started to hit a little bit over the last couple of games. But I think you keep throwing him out there. You know, I don't think this is a situation where you fear, like if this was like Weatherholt, for example, a prospect, and you fear, okay, we don't want to really lose him at the major league level, so you get caught in between of do we keep him up here and playing or do we send him down to try and figure things out? He's at the point in his career where it's you either sink or swim at the major league level. And I think you keep throwing him out there until Nootbaar comes back. And then when Nootbaar comes back, it does become a serious conversation between him and Nathan Church. And that's the only time that conversation happens is until Nootbaar comes back. Because right now there's nobody else that I look at and say that guy could potentially be your everyday center fielder of the future. You've got both of them in the lineup, in Church and Scott right now. So there's no need to really juggle things up because I'm not making playing time for Sajasi in left field. He hasn't earned it. And I'm not making playing time for Fermin in left field.
Yeah, I think there were 3 guys that could have made this interesting. One is Nathan Church, who you mentioned. He hasn't done enough to warrant like needing to have him in the lineup every single day. Now, he's been a little better lately. The home run is doing a lot of work there, but I think we've all watched him at the plate. It doesn't look overwhelming by any stretch. Sajasi has just done mostly nothing this year at the plate. And then you look down at the AAA level, a guy that could have made this interesting is Nelson Velasquez if he had gotten off to a really hot start this year. If he went down there and continued what he had done in spring training, we may be looking up right now toward the end of April and saying, all right, this guy has an OPS over 1,000 in AAA. There's nothing left for him to prove down there. Put him in the lineup, put him in left field. Let's see if you catch lightning in a bottle. And maybe then it puts pressure on Victor Scott because you want to see more of Nathan Church, who's, had some moments at least early in the season. He's certainly been better offensively than what you've seen out of Victor Scott so far. And I would say better defensively as well. He certainly has a better arm out there. So that could have put some pressure on him. But Velasquez has 19 strikeouts and 55 at-bats, and he has a .255 slugging percentage.
Is that good?
So he has put 0 pressure on the Cardinals to make any kind of a change. And then you look at like Colton Ledbetter, who's down at the AAA level. He's got an OPS of .454, which is somehow like similar or worse to what Victor Scott does at the major league level. And then the one other guy that's interesting in the outfield is Joshua Baez. He's been solid. He's hitting for a little bit of power, but he's not yet knocking at the door of the major league level. You want to see him really progress in the minors before you make that kind of a decision that you're not going to take back because he's too good of a prospect to just let him kind of come up and then struggle the way that Victor Scott has. I say all that to say that you don't have an option. Like Victor Scott is your best chance to have a plus starter in center field, so you stick with him until a viable alternative emerges. And that's not likely to take place until at least when Lars Nootbaar is ready to go at the major league level. And that's probably another month plus away.
Yeah. If they had another option, I think you would at least start considering it at this point because Scott has looked so overmatched. But like you said, the only other guy that's played well in his small sample size is Fermin, but Fermin doesn't fit into the future of the Cardinals, right? So you're not going to bench Victor Scott for a guy that still has somewhat of a interesting ceiling if it were all to click together, for Fermin, who we've seen as kind of a nice utility player. So you're not going to bench him for that. But when Nootbaar does get here, it's going to become a serious conversation because he's not even doing the little things that he had talked about coming into camp, which is bunting for base hits. I can't remember the last time he had a bunt base hit. Maybe today. I saw he got on base. I think he may have tried to bunt there, but he hasn't done that. He's not stealing bases. Like, nothing is really, even his defense, like you said, is not playing up. And to your point on Baez, you're not going to call up Joshua Baez because he's not turned the cover off the baseball, right? They want him to continue to kind of saturate down there in the minor leagues, and when he gets hot, then maybe they would have that conversation. But we're probably looking at this point not until post-trade deadline for him.
Yeah, I just think you're going to see a lot of Victor Scott.
Yeah, and you should see a lot of Victor Scott. Welcome to a rebuild.
Yep.
Yeah, but we're winning now.
It doesn't matter.
We'll find out where it goes. He might never figure it out. Maybe he's not your answer long-term in center field, but his lessons have to be learned here.
Yeah.
It's like Jordan Walker. Jordan Walker had to learn the lessons at the major league level. There was nothing that was going to be done at AAA to be able to fix him. You have to do that here. You've got to see what it looks like against major league pitching. Same thing's true right now for Victor Scott.
And you know when you make that decision where it's not going to work here, when you feel like you're ready to take that next step in your rebuild, you don't have to make that decision right away. If you get answers on all of these pieces, and then let's say 2 years from now, you're like, man, we're one piece away, whether it's a batter or a pitcher, and then you look at the weakest spot on your team and you say it's the center field position, you're like, all right, well, we can go address this now. You don't make that decision when there's a lot of holes that need to be filled on this roster.
Chris Kerber, voice of the Blues, joins us next.
All right, back-to-back days of 80 degrees. How many of you turned your air conditioner on and heard a sound that maybe doesn't sound right or sounds like it's overworking? Get Classic Air Care out there now to take a look and do a maintenance check on it. It's only $79. It's an easy appointment to book. You book online at classicaircare.com. You know you're going to get the great customer service that they give everybody. That's why they've got a 4.8 Google rating. And you can see all the different great reviews right at the top of their website. And on top of that, for less than $100, you're going to do everything you can to make sure that you're avoiding some catastrophic failure down the road that could cost you thousands. Make sure it's running efficiently, because when the temperatures get up like you're getting now, you don't want to have a repair that's going to take you a while to get fixed. And by the way, if something does go on, call Classic Air Care as well. Why? They've got over 100 vans on the road, and they can typically get to you within 24 hours. Customer satisfaction and making your home comfortable is their number one priority. It's really that simple. Call Classic Air Care today. Book an appointment online at classicaircare.com. If you choose the web route, they've been making people comfortable since 1926.
Tanner Hendrickson here with the Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals currently in action as they're in Miami, wrapping up their 3-game set with the Marlins as they trail 4-0 in the bottom of the 5th inning. Kyle Leahy on the mound for the St. Louis Cardinals. We'll keep you updated on the Cardinals game throughout the day today here on 101 ESPN. The Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We've had a lot of Blues discussion today, and we continue that with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber, joining us now via the Callier and Thompson hotline. Kerbs, appreciate the time as always, man. Recapping the season as it has now officially come to its conclusion. How you doing today?
BK, I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing really well. So we've heard Doug Armstrong. He had his exit interviews over the weekend. He was on with TMA earlier today. The guys had their conversation with him on the Last Minute Blues podcast as well. So we've heard a lot of comments from Doug Armstrong over the last 3 to 4 days. What's been your impression of the way that he's put a bow on the 2025-26 campaign?
One of the things I've always appreciated about Doug is, and he really is just direct and honest about what it's going, and he's not even telling us everything that he knows, right? But you feel like you understand the direction. I think that he recognizes that, early on, that things didn't start well and it was just too much to overcome, and so stay the course with this direction that they're going on, continue to create opportunities for the young players, and that's what he did. And then I also think, honestly, you started to see more of the guys that can, play when the heat is on, and guys that perform better when the heat is not. And I think there was a constant evaluation process that's still going to help this team.
Kerbs, preface this question by no means are we sitting here acting as if he should be fired, but Jim Montgomery was very critical of himself at that exit interview on Saturday of, saying like he think he handled it poorly with the players. They didn't respond well to it back early in the season when he kind of went after them after a bad game. I'm just curious how you feel like Jim Montgomery handled this season for the Blues.
Well, I think like anybody, organizationally, you're going to look at everything top to bottom and say, where can improvement happen? And I don't think you become the kind of coach, a national championship coach, a coach that's taken teams as far as the second round in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and a coach that has, set the NHL record for most points and wins in a season. I don't think you do that without some level of self-reflectiveness. And if you look at this season, and we've talked to him about it, this is the first time he's gone through a season where he misses, as a full year as a head coach, where he misses the playoffs at any level. And so I would expect that kind of self-reflectiveness, and I think it shows terrific accountability from the top down when he is willing to publicly kind of own where he felt his own mistakes were. So I liked what he said. I appreciate that approach. I think he'll clearly be better for it. You continue to learn about yourself and every bit of adversity you go through, even when you've hit the pinnacle of your career, which is, in the case of a coach, head coaching in the NHL. That said, I think it takes the players off the hook. If I'm going to be real blunt and honest with you, okay, so you didn't like the way the coach came in and let you have it, or maybe, it tightened things up a little bit more rather than loosen it up. That's fine. I just, I think whatever we saw from the players in the second half, why you didn't see it in the first half, I think honestly that's where players have to look at themselves in the room and figure that one out.
We're talking to Chris Kerber, voice of the Blues, here on 101 ESPN. Kerbs, just big picture wise, how much outside edition help would you expect to be added to the Blues NHL roster this offseason? I think that's the best way that I can ask that.
Okay, now I'm going to preface this by letting you, I haven't had these conversations with anybody, so this is just my opinion on it, okay? I don't expect much. I really don't. I think they're going to evaluate. To me, it feels like you're going to evaluate where Carbonell is and where Jiricek is. And you're going to determine whether or not, based on what you've seen this year and what you saw last year in camp, whether or not you think those guys, it's going to be helpful for them to break camp. Both guys could go play in the American Hockey League next year. So I don't know that you're going to fill a roster spot that could potentially block them. If I look at, the top line, I see that being fine. I look at your top 4D, I think you're in great shape there. And then even look at the fact that you've given Walker and Toropchenko extensions. Yeah, Finley's going to be a restricted free agent. Berggren's restricted. I don't think you're looking for a whole lot of help from the outside. I could see one or two players from a depth signing standpoint. If value is there, that upgrades your current depth. And otherwise, I think you're going to continue unless there's a move that is unanticipated from a draft standpoint. I think you're going to continue to see opportunity for the growth of the young guys like you saw from them in the final 25 games of the year.
That's where I wanted to go next, Kurz, because Doug talked about this on that exit interview day that, the appetite to move up in the draft is always there. It's just a matter of if you can go after that player and get another team to move out of that pick. Do you think there's an appetite from the team to maybe move out of the first round, maybe trading those first-round picks that they have this year to go get an NHL upgrade?
Okay, so this is going to be the worst answer, but it's probably the real answer, right? And I get it because you hate it when you hear it from management too. I actually truly think that they're going to do what's best for the organization. Now, what is best for the organization? And I don't know this. I see two scenarios. I look at guys, the fact that, so I guess quick answer, Alex, I think the way I look at it, I don't know that you need to use all 3 first-round picks like you did in 2023. Number one, outside that top 5, maybe outside the top 10, you're talking about players that don't impact you for 3-4 years, at best until they're just starting their careers with you, right? And look no further than the way it's going with guys like a Jiricek or some of those others, okay? So with that, I really do think this. I unlike that 2023 draft, unlike the draft where Perron and Berglund, those guys were taken, your cupboard isn't as bare. If there's an opportunity to advance this process by bringing in somebody that's been groomed kind of along the lines of a Broberg, a Holloway, or even a couple of years, a 27, 28-year-old with 1 or 2 years term in there, and there's a way to advance it, or to grab a player that's just starting out with a team like a Broberg and a Holloway, to me, that feels like the way it is the best way to go. You've got a Kaskamaki, you've got a Stenberg, you've got a Lindstein going into minors. To me, how you use those assets now to advance the process versus how you use them even just 3 years ago in 2023 to start and build the process are two very different scenarios. That's how I read this situation.
As a follow-up on that, Kerbs, and I know that all of this is just opinion.
Yeah.
Nothing can be sourced at this point because I don't think the Blues even really know what the offseason is going to look like. But if I told you, like, I think these 8 players will be in the Blues' top 9 next season, I'm curious from your perspective, do you think any one of these guys is, like, unlikely to be in the opening night lineup? Holloway, Thomas, and Snuggerud, Neighbors, Dvorsky, Carbonneau, Stenberg, and Suter. Of those 8, do you think they're all very likely to be in the opening night roster for the Blues?
I like it. I do. I actually like it. I think it goes hand in hand with what I was just saying on a couple of the previous answers.
Right.
Who'd you have on that second line?
You can kind of mix and match, but Neighbors, Dvorsky, Carbonneau.
Okay, and then the other 2 were Suter and
Stenberg. And the reason that I wanted to ask that question is to present this. If that's 8 of your top 9 players, there's only one spot remaining there potentially for Booch and or Jordan Kyrou. And so does it almost present a situation where you're going to need one of those 2, I guess Booch would be the obvious answer there, to be a 4th-line player, or you kind of have to move one of them this offseason?
No. Well, okay, so you had 8 of 9. I could say I'd put Butch Navich in there.
So there's your 9.
Listen, I do think, I do think, that to me it feels like, it does to me feel like one of those other, like I think Robert Thomas, in my opinion, unless like Doug said, something really blows you away, he kind of solidified himself that when healthy with those other 2 guys, you have a dynamic offensive line and defensive line, as the numbers showed, right? The 2 guys that had tough seasons were Buchnevich and Kyrou. But the difference for me is Pavel Buchnevich impacts the game in other ways. He's a much better defensive forward than Jordan Kyrou is. He may not be as offensively dynamic as Jordan is, right? But we saw very similar numbers now this year again. But a guy like Pavel Buchnevich, who showed he's willing to play center if need be. He'll play all the different spots, and a guy like Pavel Buchnevich will also be a big part of your penalty kill. So to me, a guy like Pavel Buchnevich has a much bigger role on the team in terms of his all-around game than Jordan Kyrou does if I compare those 2. And so I kind of look at it like that, and I don't know how you're advancing the team with everybody returning. Like, eventually, to get those guys in that you mentioned, I think you're going to have to do something there. And even if one of those moves puts a Stenberg potentially on the 4th line and he starts to take the Ivan Barbashev route, I could understand that too. So there are some options, but you are right, and that's why you have to look at the roster and say, okay, how do you open up positions? For example, it was the trade of Bolduc that opened up a spot for Snuggerud to get the growth he needed this year. I think you're going to have to look at that along the same way potentially for Carbonneau, if Carbonneau does not go spend time in the minor leagues, which is still a very good possibility and not necessarily a bad idea either.
Kerbs, I'm sure you've watched some of these playoff series so far as I have, and the one thing I said this yesterday on the show that's very noticeable is all of these teams they have that grit, that sandpaper, that physical presence to them. Do you think the Blues have that on their roster, or guys that can bring their game to that level that's necessary?
I would say no from a forward standpoint. To me, the one that does is Nathan Walker, and you look at the way they've used him both in and out of the lineup. I think you've got plenty of physicality, from a forecheck standpoint, and somebody like a Jake Neighbors and and maybe a Dylan Holloway. It's not right. I should put Jake in that willingness category. I do think this team needs a little jam back there, and somebody that's going to raise an eyebrow every now and then and look a little cuckoo when somebody looks at him funny, right? I believe that even though he wasn't playing at the end, Ryan Reeves wound up being a huge part of what you saw develop this year and the improvement of 20 points in the San Jose Sharks, right? I know that I don't believe the Columbus Blue Jackets are anywhere near where they got to without a Matthew Olivier. And do I believe that the Blues need some of that in that lineup, more of that in their lineup? I absolutely do, because look at the way Tampa's decided to play or tried to play all season long. It still matters. It still means something. It still has some part in the game, and I don't know that the Blues have enough right now willing to play that way. They have enough for it. They have enough to play. They have enough to make the playoffs, guys, if they're healthy and playing well. But the success is the next level, and I think they need somebody like that. I would agree with you guys on that one.
He's Chris Kerber. He's the voice of the Blues. Joins us each and every week here on BK and Ferrario. Curbs, looking forward to some of these offseason conversations with you, especially as we progress through these playoffs to find out kind of what the Blues can learn from the teams that are having success. We wish you nothing but the best. We'll talk with you again next week.
All right, guys. Have an awesome week. Talk to you soon.
Chris Kerber, voice of the Blues, joining us here on 101 ESPN. Appreciate his time as always. Alex, would you agree with that? The top 9 next year, most likely. Holloway, Thomas, Snuggie, and I'm not necessarily saying like these are the lines.
Any combination you want to go with.
Neighbors, Dvorsky, Carbonneau, Stenberg, Suter, Booch.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And if Kyrie's still here, I think you're talking about Stenberg as a fourth-liner player.
I think that's probably
and I think
right.
the Barbashev comp is a great one by Curbs, because Barbie was a fourth-line player that had the offense. It's just never really a spot for him. And then when there was, he showcased the ability.
It's probably
for
Stenberg, Finley, Torpo.
Yeah. And then Walker as the extra forward. And then, I mean, Berggren is
Berggren as another extra,
Berggren as the extra. So, yeah, I think without any moves, that's what you're looking at. The two guys that I would pinpoint that I don't know if they're here would be Kyrou and Pius Suter.
And I would say the defense is kind of spoken for as well. Broberg, Mayu, Lindstein, Parayko, Fowler, Juracek.
And Tucker as the seventh defenseman.
Boom.
Yeah.
I think your roster's kind of set at the NHL level. I think you can make some moves down below to help support this team heading into next year. But that's why I think that's your roster.
That's why I asked Curbs that question, and we didn't get to it. But I asked Doug where he feels they're weakest in their system, and he said it's the center position. It's down the middle.
And I would say that's the weakest part of the roster right now, too.
Yeah, and so that's why if I'm looking at it this offseason, and I don't know who becomes available, I've got 3 first-round picks. I've got multiple NHL players. I've got a lot of younger assets in my minor league system. I'm getting aggressive in fixing that second-line center position.
You should go acquire somebody like a Robert Thomas.
Sure. Next level down's fine. I was thinking like a Matty Beniers, something like that.
But the next Robert Thomas.
Yeah, next Robert Thomas. You should.
Someone has a high ask.
Should go out there and target a guy who you can plant into the second-line center position, which gives Dalibor Dvorsky the ability to be the third-line center and continue his development.
Agreed.
And then as both grow, the player you have brought in and Dalibor Dvorsky can jockey for the second-line center position.
And that allows you to trade Pius Suter as well.
Yep. And I don't need to go out there and focus on drafting a center and then waiting to develop that center. I make it aggressive now. My wing spot, I'm loaded in that area. Loaded is a loose term.
And now that you're probably not getting a top 3 to 5 pick, the guy that you select is probably not going to impact the roster this year.
Correct. You're more than likely going to get a 3-year ETA. Yeah, 3-year ETA for a centerman or a 3-year ETA for a defenseman. That's what you're more likely to get in this scenario. Now, if you win the lottery, we're having completely different conversations because I'm drafting McKenna or Stenberg, and then I'm going out there and I'm making moves to adjust. But I think even if you get the first overall pick, I'm still targeting fixing my center position, and the target is going to be I need a second-line center so that Dalibor Dvorsky can continue his development, but I have somebody that I trust that can play with these guys on my second line.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN in about 10 minutes. I thought Doug Armstrong had an interesting and maybe surprising statement on who the biggest Blues star is right now. We'll get into that in about 10 minutes. The Junk Drawer next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We're just giving ourselves more work around here.
I was going to use a word that you can't use on the radio, but I am just doing that to myself in terms of more time.
Yeah. We're just talking off air about podcasts that we could all potentially do.
Dad Pod.
I just signed up Tim to do his 1,000th podcast.
Yeah, congrats, Tim.
T-Bone just signed up Carrie to do one on Illinois.
Illinois, yeah. Me, Jackson, and Tim could do a Mizzou podcast together. We're the Mizzou guys at the
trying
station.
to jump
you know what?
ship on
Actually,
shows.
the whole morning show was Mizzou.
T-Bone, I've always wanted it to be Ferrario and
Doug's a
Friends.
Mizzou guy.
No, I didn't know.
I've always wanted it to be a Ferrario and Friends. He's trying to jump ship,
I
so
know.
you and I can take over, man.
I know. It's so him.
I guess Martin's a Marquette guy. Be a fun Mizzou Marquette game in November
Would it?
for that show.
Would
Well, they're playing each other in
I
basketball.
understand that, but would it?
Yeah,
would
when you
that be
guys get
fun?
killed by Marquette, it'd be embarrassing
Like,
for
would
the
that
three
be
of you.
fun?
I don't
Four
think
of you.
Marquette's very good right
Well, that's
now.
what I'm saying.
Mizzou's
So,
expected to be quite good.
I
now.
wasn't
Don't
thinking
your
Mizzou
coaches-
losing to Marquette. I was thinking, why is it like a bragging thing? Like, Marquette's not expected to be any good.
Well, because you've got one guy on the show that's a Marquette
But
grad,
he
and the
even
other
knows that they're
three
bad.
are. I don't know. It'd be
I
fun.
don't know, I enjoy watching when I kick the crap out of
Yeah, I was about to
It's
say, I
like
think
me
it'd
if
be
I did a
fun.
podcast with somebody from SEMO when Lindenwood played. I'm like,
So
Doesn't go
Alex
well.
can do a Lindenwood podcast. T-Bone can do the Illinois podcast. You could do it. Who do we have as
Marshy.
Lindenwood grad? Is he a
Marshy's a Lindenwood guy.
All right, so you and Marshy can do a Lindenwood show.
I'm sure Marshy would love that.
I'm sure Mark.
Talking
thrilled to be
Lindenwood
talking about
hockey.
Lindenwood.
Really got a good program.
Yeah, well, he's the voice of Maryville's hockey team, so I don't think he'd want to do
He
that.
can do a pod.
I think
We do
you
the
should just,
dad pod
I think
as
you
well.
should just do a dad pod like I've been trying to get you to do for the last year, and somebody's like, look,
Look,
I'm
man.
too work too hard.
I think we should start doing post-game reaction to stuff.
Oh, I already
That's
do that. Every Blues game, you can catch me on YouTube. I'm out.
The big thing that I think we need to start doing is, like, I'm going to do a Mizzou. Hopefully, I haven't talked to the higher ups yet.
Sure you are.
Hoping to do some Mizzou post-game reaction this year to some of the Mizzou
I can't wait to
games.
watch you yell.
Yeah, I know.
It's going to be fun for me.
People, drink, they win the big game. Do we just forget about it?
we just have fun when
They went to the Cotton Bowl and beat Ohio State's third string.
know how hard it is to win double digits in college football?
We're about fun.
Drake knows how to win.
Just got the playoff expanded. It's still about fun.
It's still enjoyable.
All right. That's enough.
Did we sound like you? Because I think we nailed it.
We would have had more tone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Somebody said a Big Brother pod. It's coming back soon.
Yeah. I'm out on
Love
that
is
one.
Blind pod. We can do a reality
My
show
wife
pod.
would love to do a masked singer pod.
You guys still watch that?
I don't. She watches it. She'll have me watch every once in a while. She's like, can you tell me who this voice is? And typically I'm pretty good at it.
I didn't even know that was still going.
Oh, my God. It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
on 24 seasons or something. Every night she's watching something, and I'm like, what is this? More masked singer. So she'd love to do a pod. If somebody's out there wants to do a masked singer pod.
I'd like to do like a prestige TV pod. Me and T-Bone could do that one.
I don't even know what that is.
All the
Like high level TV.
Yeah. the pit.
I don't watch high-level television.
I know, just the way he said it.
know.
I didn't want to be associated.
I don't watch
You
high-level
know I have a
television.
wide range of TV shows that I watch. I watch The Depths of Hell. I watch the stuff that I would consider to be really
Alex
good.
only watches trash television. I watch depth TV. I watch the
I know, just the
prestige
way he said
television
it.
show. The shows that get
I know,
awards.
I know.
The shows that are nominated for awards are the shows that only are watched in the Kiley
As
household.
an award
Which is
winner
funny.
myself.
Yeah.
It's an award-winning journalist from a state that he literally has never lived in.
But I do write for the Alton Telegraph. You can see that
Shout
each
out.
and every week throughout the
A
Mizzou
Tinder
football
Tuesday
season.
pod. We should get T-Bone to do a Tinder pod.
I would do that with T-Bone.
I would do that with T-Bone, and I have no interest in Tinder, but I would do it just so I can do
Learn
the
about
interviews.
his Tinder
yes,
forays.
I want to learn about your dating life. Tell me more.
I don't know how much there is to learn there, but we
I
can
think
learn
there's,
about all there is
there's a
to
lot to learn. You just have to dig a little deeper.
Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll play a game of More Likely to Happen. You give us two scenarios. We'll tell you which one is more likely. But next, Doug Armstrong had a, I thought, surprising statement on the Blues' biggest star currently on the roster. We'll let you hear it next here on 101 ESPN. Cardinals game is going exactly as we all expected.
Yeah, snooze fest. It's probably good that they had technical difficulties there for a couple of innings.
Cardinals do have 3 hits.
Oh, hot dog.
Oh, that's 2 more than last I saw.
A double by Nolan Gorman, a single by Nathan Church, and a single by Pedro Paez. That's what you've got so far today. And on the pitching side of things, Kyle Leahy went 5 innings, and that's about as good as I could describe his outing.
How many pitches, though?
He did need 90 pitches to get through the 5.
Almost there,
8
T-Bone.
hits.
It was time for him to
3
leave.
walks, 4 earned runs. He allowed 12 base runners in 5 innings. That's actually kind of hard to do and only allow 4 earned runs. So somehow he actually got pretty fortunate with the results.
If he would have thrown 10 more pitches, he could have given them 6.
Don't think so, but that was the outing for Kyle Leahy. Then you have a couple of relievers come in, Gordon Graceffo and Matt Swanson. They both get through unscathed in their 2 innings. That is where we are at right now. At the end of the 7th inning, 8th inning, just about to begin. Cardinals are losing 4-0 in Miami. Given the lineup today, not all that surprising. All right, Alex, let's get back to the Blues. Doug Armstrong had an interesting statement on the Last Minute Blues podcast earlier today. He was asked by Jeremy Rutherford about it. The question is really about the prospects and the upside that currently exists. And he was asked specifically about Carbonneau. Is he the guy most likely to be a star? That's where this answer begins.
If Carbonneau makes it, he's going to score goals. That's his job. That's what he does. I think he's going to make it. He's got almost 60, I think, now for the year or over that.
Crazy.
So yeah, I think there's success players there. I think though, when I look at, I think Broberg is going to be a star in his own way. He's not going to be a Hughes star or a Makar star, but he's going to be I don't want to put too much pressure on him. But Petro, when we had Petro, he controlled the game with getting 40 to 50 points.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Broberg can control the game not getting 80 or 90 points. So I think there's guys there. But if you're saying Crosby, McKinnon, Celebrini, no, we don't.
Yeah. That actually didn't surprise me when he said Broberg.
I found it interesting that was the name he brought up.
Because I think he is your star right now. And I think the way he plays is probably the closest thing to a star that the Blues have had since Pietrangelo and Vladimir Tarasenko.
Man,
he was asked about Snuggerud, and that's where he got to Justin Carbonneau. And I think both can be stars, but to be stars as goal scorers, you've got to put up 40-plus goals. You've got to be 40 to 50 goal scorers, and I just don't know what those guys are at. I think, and he said Alex Pietrangelo, which is a great name. The other one that comes to mind for me is Drew Doughty with Philip Broberg. If you look at Doughty's career, he had one season where he put up more than 50 points. It was 60 points in the 2017-2018 season. He won a Norris Trophy, now, mind you, in the era that this was, where there wasn't a whole lot of goal scoring, with 14 goals and 51 points, but the guy averaged 28 minutes a night. That, to me, is who Philip Broberg is.
Do you think Doughty, though, is a star because of what he did during the regular season, or is Doughty a star because of what his teams were doing in the postseason? Because he won that Norris Trophy after the Kings had already had multiple Stanley Cups.
Yes.
So I think he got his notoriety because of the way that he performed.
I'd say the star on that
postseason.
team was more Kopitar, right?
If you're going off the
It's
teams
both,
that won the
but,
Stanley Cups,
Brown,
it was really
maybe.
Jonathan Quick. Jonathan Quick was the star of that team. I think, yes, the Cups helped, but the style and the way that he played kept him a star because he always was their number one defenseman, always the guy playing the most minutes in the National Hockey League, and always the guy that could contribute. I think Broberg can get to that, but what your reaction is fair because I think for Blues fans, that's not a star that they want. The star that they want is either a defenseman that puts up 80 to 90 points or a Macklin Celebrini, a Connor McDavid, a Sidney Crosby, those types of players. You don't have those on your team, like he said, because you're not picking in that position. And I know people will be like, oh, you should be picking in that position.
Yeah.
They're not bad enough to pick in that position.
Could have been.
I don't think they could have, unless they literally traded everybody off of their roster. So, yeah, I think Snuggerud could be a star. I think Holloway could be a star. It's just different levels of stardom that people are accustomed to.
So he mentioned Petro, and I find it to be interesting because Petro got so much of his production from the power play, right?
Yeah.
Do you think Broberg's going to be that? Because that's where I do think it falls a little bit short. And I'm not saying this as a criticism of Broberg.
Oh, you're right.
But I don't know that he's going to be that guy. Don't know that he's going to be a number one quarterback on a power play unit. And if he's not, I think it just limits the upside of what he can do for you points-wise. And I do think, right or wrong, that's where a lot of the accolades come from for defensemen. I mean, you look at Alex Pietrangelo, and on average during his Blues career, he averaged per season about 4 power play goals and about 11 power play assists per year.
Drew Doughty was 5 goals and 14 assists.
So you're basically talking about 15 to 20 points per year from the power play, which would have meant Alex Pietrangelo, without being a power play regular, would have been about 30 points per year. And Doughty, you said he was about 50, and he was about 20 per year on the power play as well.
It was 5 goals and 14 assists.
Yeah, so about 30 even strength points per year. And I think that's pretty much where I expect Philip Broberg to be. So for him, it's really about what does the power play potential look like to expand that upside from a points perspective. And from the Blues team-wide outlook, like you mentioned, you think that Broberg maybe is the guy that is already viewed potentially as the star. I think nationally it's very much Robert Thomas. Am I mistaken there?
No, I don't think you're mistaken there.
I think most people, if you ask them who the biggest star on the Blues is today, they would probably say Jordan Bennington because of all of the international stuff plus the Stanley Cup. But if you ask, say, the guy that's playing the most like a star today, I think most people would say Thomas, right?
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, I think right now, absolutely. I think if you're projecting in the future, though, I would have Broberg on that list. And I would have one of Snuggerud or Holloway on that list. But yeah, as of right now, there's no question. Robert Thomas is the star of the team. It's just you got to have it consistently. I think Doug said that in the media availability, like if/when he puts it together for an 82-game schedule, that's a guy that can put up 90-plus points and be one of the best centers in the game. But you got to do it for 82 games. And I think that's where he was getting at with Philip Broberg. That's 2 straight seasons where he has been the exact same player every single game that he has taken over. And to your power play question, it's the one area that he does need to get to, and it's the one area that I was surprised at how much better he looked in that area down the stretch.
Can I ask you a follow-up on that? Does he need to get better there?
Does he need to? No. I think they would prefer to have another guy that can play power play so that Broberg doesn't have to.
And that's kind of what I'm like. I don't think it's necessary. I think it'd be great. If he's really good at it, that's awesome. That'd be wonderful. But if you've got Mayu who can potentially do that for you, if Juracek can potentially do that for you, if you've got other guys that either are added to the team or that become part of your system that become that power play quarterback, I have no problem with that whatsoever. If it just means, hey, Broberg's not going to play in those situations and he's going to get, 20 to 25 minutes a night elsewhere and he's going to finish with 30 plus points every year. If that's the best version of Philip Broberg, fine.
I think, though, that they would look at it as, but if he is going to get to that level, which I think they would prefer to have a guy that could get to that level. If he's your best option,
sure, of
then
course.
I'd put him on there because, that's what the Haskinens, the Drew Doughties, the, some of the best defensemen in the game can acquire. The power play is so tough for a power play defenseman because his job is solely represented on the guys around him that can put the puck in the net. And I just don't know if the team's where they're at.
It's almost a creating offense thing, though. Like, I look at the best quarterbacks.
He did a great job of it from the Olympic break on. He had 2 goals and 3 power play assists in 25 games when he was playing the number 1 unit. And
did you feel like the power play was good?
No, the power play was awful. But I think Broberg was the best thing on that power play.
Oh, okay.
He created a lot more offense because he plays like a 5th forward out there. He can float around. And if you look at what he did from the Olympic break on, which, again, we all understand by now, it wasn't as competitive, but that averaged to be 6 power play goals a season and 9 power play assists a season.
Yeah, maybe I'm underestimating him because the power play around him was so bad. I think I didn't really notice anything that stood out to me about Broberg on the power play, though he looked like a guy that could maybe be on your second unit. I remember we did this with Parayko all the time as well, where Parayko's got to be a guy that gets on the power play. That's where he's going to get his points. He's going to be somebody that can eventually quarterback the power play unit. And eventually I was like, no, that's just not him. He's a really good defenseman. He's a defensive-minded defenseman. That's who he's going to be, and it's okay that that's who he's going to be. That's kind of how I view Broberg. I think it's okay if Broberg becomes, at best, a second-unit power play quarterback, and really where he wins is the way that Jay Bouwmeester did. where, yes, he's going to put up decent points every year, but that's not his game. His game is that he's going to shut the other team down, and occasionally he's going to score some goals for you as well because, man, he's really good at that, especially at 5-on-5 in transition. But I think Jiricek might be better than him. And the projections at least seem to suggest he might be a better offensive-minded defenseman than what Broberg is right now. I would say, like, Fowler potentially can be better at that stuff than Broberg is. I think maybe Lindstein eventually can. I think Mayu potentially can. So I don't feel the need to force him into that position if it's not the best way to utilize his skills and to get the most out of your roster.
Yeah, I think there's more. I think Broberg is different than Bouwmeester because I believe that offense is better. In the way that they used Bouwmeester, I don't think I would use Broberg. And I think Broberg's that all-around, every scenario defenseman. I think Parayko is your Bouwmeester now, to where it's you use him as that shutdown defenseman. There's no more offensive want because you've got Mayu, you'll have Jiricek and Lindstein and Broberg. But Broberg's never going to be a star in the league. I think he'll play much like what Alex Pietrangelo was if he hits the ceiling and continues to trend in that direction, because Pietrangelo was never even viewed as the star of the team on the Blues. It was always Vladimir Tarasenko. And then in the Stanley Cup year, I think it was more O'Reilly and Jordan Binnington. So
he was viewed as a number one defenseman, though,
but it was never
league.
viewed as that, like, star of the team. I think there were other guys that became outs for it, and I think Broberg will fall into that camp. The problem for the Blues is going to be you're going to have to find that star that's viewed around the league if you want to have the success you're hoping for.
That's Alex. He's T-Bone. I'm BK. Coming up in about 15 minutes as the National League opened up more than any of us expected it to for the postseason. No, I'm not talking about for the World Series. I know the Dodgers exist, but for the playoffs to get in, because we're all about having fun around here. We'll get into that in 15 minutes.
Soon.
More likely to happen next here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line for more likely to happen. You guys give us 2 scenarios. We'll tell you which one is more likely here on 101 ESPN. Tomorrow night, it is the NFL Draft. You'll be able to hear full coverage right here on 101 ESPN beginning at 6 o'clock. How about this, Alex? The Fast Lane is off early on Friday for day 2 of the NFL Draft coverage starting right here on 101 ESPN on Friday at 5 o'clock.
That's crazy. Mandate now to make the NFL Draft start at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
There you go. Coverage starts at 11 a.m.
Yes.
Central Time.
Boom. A Thursday afternoon.
More likely to happen. We see no trades in the top 10, or we see multiple trades within the top 10 of this year's draft.
Ooh, I don't know multiple. I think we see one, so I will say more likely that no trades happen.
Yeah, I would say more likely no trades happen either. I don't think there's going to be multiple. I think there might be one, and I'm even skeptical of that because I don't know who really wants to trade up in this year's draft.
If it happens, I think it's going to be less than what you would typically expect. Remember a couple of years ago, the Vikings, I think it was, moved down and they got like nothing for their pick. I think you could see something like that where a team moves down and then you see the draft math, the draft board math up on the screen, and they're like, wow, that's not what we expected it to cost. And normally when you see top 10 picks traded, it's for a quarterback. So the team that's moving up has to give up a haul in order to get there. Like when T-Bone's Rams moved up for Jared Goff, or you saw that same year it was the Eagles that moved up for Carson Wentz. That's when you get a ton for those picks. I don't think something like that is happening this year, but I do think you could see potentially multiple trades. So I'll go that direction where you do see maybe the Cardinals and the Browns both move down and somebody comes up like the Chiefs and maybe the Cowboys. Alex, what do you have for us
More
today?
likely to happen than to make the next big trade in St. Louis sports, the Cardinals or the Blues?
I think the Blues will make a big trade. I think Kairu's going somewhere this offseason, and I think that would...
Let me rephrase it. The big trade that benefits their team.
Their NHL level team?
NHL team versus their MLB team.
Say the Cardinals. I think the Blues, if they're going to make deals, and this will probably be disappointing to some fans, but like I think you might see a trade of Jordan Kyrou going elsewhere for minor league players. Guys that maybe don't boost your expectations for the upcoming season. So I'll say the Cardinals are more likely to make a trade that helps the roster right now.
I think I would agree with that. I would say it's the Cardinals because I think there's a chance they get to where they want to be quicker and try to accelerate their process. For the Blues, I mean, it sure sounds like outside trading away Kyrou for like minor leagues, like BK was saying. Sounds more like they just want to see what they have internally rather than get aggressive and go out and get like a Robertson or a Beniers as their second line center.
Yeah, I'll say Blues because I think they make theirs either this offseason or next offseason, and I'm not sure we talk Cardinals big trade until next offseason for them.
Guys more likely to lose their rotation spot first, Kyle Leahy or Andre Palante?
Kyle Leahy. I just don't think he's a starter.
And I think they need help in the bullpen too. So
I would agree with you guys. The only reason that I'm hesitant...
You're going to say Liberator?
No, he's not been that great either. But the only reason I'm hesitant to say he would, quote-unquote, lose his spot first is if you pull him out, now you're down to 5 starters. Because if you shift him to the bullpen, you don't have a 6th guy ready. Now, some would say that doesn't matter in a rebuilding year. So I think it does matter while you're kind of in it right now.
Here's a follow-up to that, though. Another option, you send him down. Like maybe Leahy goes down to AAA and does what Palante did, was it last year or 2 years ago, when he went down to AAA and figured it out as
2
a
years
starter.
ago. But he figured it out. He converted from bullpen to starter.
I know that's what Kyle Leahy's doing.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they would be willing to do that.
I guess that's the call, right? It's your career. You get to decide, do you want to be a starter? Because if you want to continue to be a starter for us, the way you do so is by going down to AAA and honing in on your craft because it's clearly not working right here at the big league level. Or you can go to the bullpen and go back to the role that you were in a year ago, and you could be a really useful bullpen arm for the Cardinals. Like that may ultimately be the conversation they have to have. Palante, when he had that conversation, he decided, I want to be a starter. I want to have this opportunity to increase my arsenal. I'm going to go work on this sinker. It's going to work for me. I'm going to make this thing happen. The other thing that is different here is Kyle Leahy's 29. Mm-hmm. At the time, Andre Palante was like 25, 26. So they were at very different points in their lives as well.
I'm just trying to fathom a world where you just said Palante's figured it out.
He did 2 years ago.
Yeah. Again,
as a starter.
lefties. Righties still hit him pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good starter to
The
have.
other thing, too, like, I don't know if they would
Palante
use
2
this
years
as an
ago had a
excuse.
3.7 ERA at the big league level. He was fine.
I never felt like that was sustainable, though.
I don't know. Everything about it was good.
The thing that I would wonder what they would say, because I feel like they use this as an excuse a lot for the minors when it comes to guys when they're up at the big league level, is, well, they can't fix Leahy's issue at the minor league level because they can't dictate what the opponent will throw at him. And what I mean by that is his issue is getting lefties out. Well, in the minors, they could still load up a lineup with lefties. And what are you going to find out if he gets those lefties out at the AAA level?
But those are your only options. Like, eventually you have 5 starters. So you can either have him out of the bullpen here or working as a starter at the minor league level. If you don't think there's value in that, then I guess he just goes to the bullpen. But you also don't have a 6th starter right now because Quinn Matthews can't find the strike zone. Yesterday, it was the same thing where he walked 6 in 4 innings.
I heard Senja, though, threw left-handed in a couple of at-bats.
He did and got rocked.
I thought we were getting rid of that.
Yeah, no.
No, the Cardinals said they weren't.
I thought they were mainly focusing on right-handed.
I thought the Cardinals said they were going
focusing on right-handed, but they said whenever they announced him that they know this is something that matters to him, and so they're going to give him the opportunity to do it until it proves to not work. So somebody said, is Dobbins almost ready? Yeah, at some point in the next week, I would expect to probably see Hunter Dobbins at the major league level. My guess is he probably gets one more start down at AAA.
Yeah.
And then probably joins the major league rotation. But I think it'll be as a 6-man to start things out. I don't think any of this conversation is probably 2+ weeks away before you make any kind of determination on what you're doing with your rotation. All right, 314-399-9646. That's the Air Covered Service text line for more likely to happen. You give us 2 scenarios. We'll tell you which one is more likely. Let's start out with this from the 314. More likely, the Blues select Ivar Stenberg or the Blues trade Otto Stenberg?
I'll say they trade Otto Stenberg. I don't think you're getting Ivar unless you're in the top 3 or 4, I think. I've seen him drop as far as 5. I don't think he goes past 5. So, yeah, you got to be top 5.
I'll believe we're winning the lottery and taking them. I don't think they're trading Otto.
I think if they win the lottery, they're not taking them. Everything I've seen says Gavin McKenna has become the clear-cut number 1 pick in this year's draft.
I agree with you, though. I think they're more likely to select Stenberg than they would be to select or to trade Otto Stenberg. I don't think there's any reason to trade him right now. I don't think he has a ton of value.
Yeah, unless there's a massive deal that somebody just wants that piece thrown in. But, yeah, I don't know why they would want that as the sole piece.
From the 314, more likely the Blues package their 3 first-round picks and Kyrou for a top 2 selection, or they package them for a first or a second-line center. So more likely they trade all of that for a top 2 pick or a current first or second line center.
I'd say current first or second line center. I don't think the Vancouver Canucks nor the Calgary Flames or Chicago would have any appetite for a lower draft pick and Jordan Kyrou when they could potentially get a better Jordan Kyrou with the first or second overall pick.
What Alex said.
I agree. Yeah.
From Vizzini, more likely to be traded, Jordan edition, Kyrou or Bennington?
I'll say Kyrou. I don't think there's an appetite of Bennington being traded.
I agree. I think with the season going to 84, the way that the modern game is, you need 2 goalies that you trust, even if you're not a great hockey team. And the other thing, too, is there's no value trading Jordan Bennington. And what I mean by that is Blues like him, the NHL likes him, the NHL's not giving you anything for him, though. As we've seen, the NHL values goalies like Major League Baseball values relievers. They just don't value them, and they never really have. So I would say, yeah, it's more likely it's Kyrou that's dealt.
And if I'm Bennington's agent, I'm looking at him being like, look, man, go play 40 games this season, maybe take over the number 1 spot for a little bit if Hover slumps. Go get yourself another 4-year contract rather than going to a team not being good there, them not re-signing you, and a team not giving you the shot to be the number 1.
Yeah, I mean, if you get the opportunity to go play in Florida,
that's an anomaly. Yeah, like a team that's like a perennial championship squad, yeah, you take that.
I think that's the only way that anybody's trading for Benner, though, is if they feel like they're in a championship window. I don't think there's any other reason why you would trade for him.
Yeah, or a team that thinks they're ready to enter a championship window and they say, let's go get him so that we're there.
Yeah.
Like Montreal, for example. If Montreal loses in the series and it's goaltending, they'd be like, well, we need a guy that gets us there. And then you sign him. The problem for Binnington is I go there, I don't have a good year, because we know how goaltending struggles to get acclimated to a new team.
That's fair.
And then you become a free agent, and then nobody's willing to give you a long-term deal.
From the 636, more likely, the Cardinals have 230 home run hitters, or the Blues have 230 goal scorers over the next season.
Oh, 230 goal scorers.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't know who your second 30 home run hitter would be on the Cardinals.
You're hoping to be Gorman, but
Yeah, well,
That's a hope and a prayer.
yeah.
I think he's the only one that could even project
Yeah,
to that.
you
That's
know-
why I mentioned
Herrera
him.
would be the one that I'd feel like would be more, but
He's not hitting for much
he's
power.
not a
Yeah.
30 home run hitter. I
And
don't
Burley's
think.
not either. I think they're both capped at 25, best case scenario. So, yeah, I would say it's goal scorers for the
Walker
Blues.
struggles. I don't know if Walker's a 30 home run hitter.
That's fair. He's at 8, so he's just on a good pace
Oh,
for
yeah,
it.
for sure.
With the other guys, it would just require so much. They would have to go on a Jordan Walker-like tear for a few weeks in order to get back into that conversation. And the one guy that I think has that kind of power, I'm not telling you it's going to happen, but the one guy that has that kind of power would be Gorman.
Yeah.
Where
You're right.
we've seen it before. He's hit like 7 in a 15-game stretch. I just don't have any real belief that that's going to take place this season. All right, coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get into the rewind. By the way, the Dotem is coming up on Friday, May the 15th. It's at Oak Valley Golf Course and Resort, and it is sold out. How about that? But you could still win a free foursome to join TMA for a full day of fun out on the golf course. The Dotem will include breakfast at the Donut Drive-In, or breakfast from the Donut Drive-In, rather. Lunch from Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken, all your Cutwater canned cocktails, and Anheuser-Busch beer and seltzers. Plus, they'll have the 100 West Dental closest to the pin competition, the Evergreen Wealth Strategies longest drive competition, and an after party with food from my personal favorite, Texas Roadhouse. Find that chance to win a free foursome for the sold-out Dotem Golf Course with TMA right now at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 ESPN mobile app. Winner must be 21 or older. Giveaways brought to you by Cutwater Canned Cocktails. Coming up next, the National League feels pretty wide open right now if you eliminate, that one team called the Dodgers. We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here with the Sports Center update brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. The Cardinals fall to the Miami Marlins in the rubber match of their 3-game set, 4-1. Kyle Leahy was the losing pitcher for the Cardinals today as they mustered just 4 hits and their 1 run scored. Miami 4 runs on 12 hits and 1 error committed. This Sports Center update was brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. You'll be saying, I love my windows.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. So the National League is very much not wide open. The Dodgers still exist. They're 16-7 on the season. They're plus 55 so far this year. They're probably going to win the World Series. Vegas agrees with that. Right now, they're minus 105 to win the National League. To put that in context, that means you would have to bet $105 in order to win $100 on them to win the World Series.
Smart money management.
For context, the Pirates today are minus 110 to beat the Texas Rangers. So the Pirates have the same odds today to win their game against the Rangers as the Dodgers are to win the National League this season. That's insanity, Alex. I can't remember a time where something like that existed.
So you have
20 games into the regular
season. So you're having
season.
fun this season, though, right?
That's
You're
right.
enjoying this?
Here's what I wanted to do with you, Alex. You and T-Bone.
I don't want to do this, man.
Can you name the next team in terms of Vegas odds this year to win the National League?
Oh.
Dodgers are 1 at minus 105. Can you name the team that's number 2?
I think it was the Mets, but it surely can't be that anymore.
They are now 5th.
That still
I'm
feels
amazed they're
high.
5th.
Is it
I'll say
Atlanta?
Atlanta is next at 7-1 odds.
Wow.
Atlanta, by the way, has no pitching. So there's that.
Yeah, I don't know how they're as good as they have
I was
been.
going to say Seattle.
Well,
not
they're in
in
the
the
American League.
Oh, I thought you said I thought you said overall.
This goes to our conversation yesterday. Were you not listening to the show
I
again?
mean, I thought you had said overall. Well, we're talking World Series, so I just assumed it was overall.
Oh, we said win the National League, not win the World Series.
Oh, yeah, so I wasn't listening. Yeah, no, I wasn't listening.
Do you ever listen to the show?
When I feel like it's an enjoyable conversation.
No, hockey. That's when you listen.
Not even then sometimes.
No, listen. Yeah, if it's not an enjoyable conversation, I won't listen to it.
Who started in the NL?
The Chicago Cubs at 10-1.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then after them, that's weird. This literally just changed. I don't know why, but the Brewers went from 13-1 to 14-1 as I was looking at this. The Brewers, the Mets, and the Phillies are all at 14-1 right now, which means Vegas views the Brewers as the same odds as 2 teams that are like 10 games below 500 right now to win the National League. In other words, it's pretty wide open for other teams to be, hey, who gets to lose in the NLCS to the Dodgers this year? We're all competing for that. Let's see who it is this time around. Is there an opening for the NL Central, Alex, which would, by definition, include the Cardinals? To reach the playoffs, not to win the World Series. I know that's obviously, there's one team.
Is there an opening? Yes, because I don't think anybody is great. It's a very slim opening, in my opinion. Again, it's not the end-all, be-all, but I do look at the expected wins and losses, and you're the worst team in the NL Central. The Reds, who are the first-place team in the NL Central, are the second-worst team in the NL Central. So I think everything around you in the National League, teams that were expected to be playoff contenders, not being playoff contenders, the Mets, the Phillies, I think that allows the opening for you. But if you're solely talking about the NL Central, no, I don't think so, because I think the cream rises to the top.
Yeah, I actually think there is an opening in the National League for that last playoff spot for these teams from the NL Central, including the Cardinals. And the reason that I say that is going into the year, I would have thought Dodgers win the West, which they probably will. I would have said that the Phillies win the East, but if it wasn't them, you were still going to have Atlanta and the Mets be in that conversation. And by that being the case, they were going to be in the conversation for the wild card. Well, I don't even know if they can be in the conversation for the wild card the way that the Phillies and Mets have started. I mean, it's one thing to get off to a slow start like the Giants, for example, who sit at 10-13, right? They're below 500. They haven't been hitting. But, that you can kind of overcome. You can overcome being 3 games below 500 this early in the season. Can the Phillies overcome being 7? Can the Mets overcome 9 games below 500 this point early in the year? It's going to take incredible runs to get going. They're already 7 games back of the wild card of the Mets, not the division, the wild card. So I do think there is an opening here because these teams got to such slow starts in the NL East. I think it creates an opening for a playoff spot for the National League Central teams, whoever doesn't win the division.
I'm with you, man. I mean, you look at it. I don't think that we've watched Miami now for 3 straight games. I know they beat the Cardinals 2 out of 3.
We did try in one of those games.
Agreed. No, seriously, the Cardinals knew today was a scheduled loss.
Yeah.
Did you guys look at that team today and say to yourself, damn, that's a team that's really going to be contending this year?
No.
We've seen the Nationals. I felt the same way.
Yeah, well, definitely not.
The Giants have not exactly put their best foot forward. We all know the Rockies are not going to be any good. That's like half of the teams in the muddy middle.
Arizona has a negative run differential.
Have we seen this team play anybody in the NL Central yet, though?
No, and that's where, I think there is an opportunity for maybe multiple teams in the NL Central to make it to the playoffs this year. Do I think the Cardinals will be one of them? Probably not. I'd be surprised by it. I don't think that they're a top 2, maybe even a top 3 team in this division. But I don't know yet. I don't think I have any kind of certainty on how this division is going to stack up by the end of the season, because I don't know how good any of these other teams are either. So is there an opening in the National League right now? I think yes, definitively. There absolutely is, because of the awful start by both the Phillies and the Mets. That's what's changed my opinion on this. And because of that, there's something out there potentially for the Cardinals. Do you think Cardinals fans care, though? I'm truly asking, because for years, we've talked about how little value there is in just getting into the playoffs. Is that different this year in a season where there were no expectations, and it could feel kind of similar to where the Blues were at a year ago, where they got in and we were all having our good vibes conversations about how much fun it was to see them go on that run, and then, wow, they almost beat the Winnipeg Jets, the President's Trophy team. Like, is there a scenario where you would look at this and be like, you know what? There was value in that this year. This is pretty cool that the Cardinals in a retool, rebuild season were able to get into the playoffs. Or is it just whatever and nobody's going to care because it's once again a team that won't do anything once they get there?
You guys want to go first and spread the positivity, or do you want me to just...
Oh, I'm not spreading positivity. Okay. I don't think people will care.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any value to it. I think the difference with last year for the Blues and the difference this year was you had a lot of guys that had been on the team for a couple of years, like Neighbors and Holloway and Broberg, and you wanted to get a taste of the playoffs. I don't see that phase here for the Cardinals, because I think when they hope to be playoff teams, the guys that we're talking about on the pitching staff and maybe on the position player side are probably completely different players that are here. I don't think there's a whole lot of excitement from Cardinals fans because the Dodgers are the entity that's there. And so basically you're saying like, oh, cool, that was fun, but you're not going anywhere. There's no hope. And I also view this as you shouldn't veer off from the plan. So they could be the best team in the NL Central. And when you get to the trade deadline, I will still be arguing to trade Riley O'Brien and Dustin May and anybody else that makes sense, because you are in asset accumulation mode, not in development mode.
And I think what makes it different for the Blues, I don't really care about the argument of, well, they had the young guys in the playoffs. No, when they got to the playoffs, you felt like they had a chance because they had Jordan Binnington, right? Even if you didn't believe in the Blues, it was hard not to convince yourself of, well, they do have Binnington that can get hot, and you only need a hot goalie to win a round. If the Cardinals make the playoffs, it's going to be hard to picture how they win, even the wild card round. And that's before they see the Dodgers. They could, but it's just so hard to see it because, like, you look at their pitching, you don't really believe in it. We're not going to believe in it probably at that point either. You're probably not going to believe a ton in the offense. That might be the thing that gives you a sliver of hope. And we'll see about the bullpen. But I'm kind of with Alex, and I think just people won't care. And if they sell at the deadline because of what Alex just said of, hey, we got to focus on the long term, it's not about the short term, they make the playoffs after being sellers. I still don't think people are going to care about this team. I think they would. I think there would be a decent crowd at the game for the playoff. Like, it wouldn't be what it is now. I don't think it'd be a sellout, though. I don't think they would sell out for a playoff game.
I think people would get excited about it because it's been a while since this team has been in the playoffs. It's been 3 years now. And even then, like, it had been a couple of years since they had really played in the playoffs because 2020 was just this weird season where it wasn't even here. I think Cardinals fans would be excited about it, but I don't know. Normally, it's like obvious. Yeah, the Cardinals fans are going to be excited about their team in the playoffs. I don't know about this year.
I think there's a difference between getting excited for the playoffs and getting excited for the future of the team. Like, I think those are two different conversations, because I'm going to be excited for the playoffs if we get playoffs because it's playoff baseball. it's not going to change my excitement for where the team is at, because I'd still view them as in a rebuild and that they need to go out there and make necessary adjustments to fix it.
I just think people will view it a lot like they did that 19 team. Now, maybe that's different because that team had expectations, or the expectation then was it was winning. I just still think that's this market. I don't know that it changes even though the organization says we're going into a rebuild. I think that conversation is, all right, well, tell me in 3 years when we're ready to compete, then I'll get excited when we make the playoffs. You surprisingly get there now? Don't really care.
He's T-Bone, that's Alex, I'm BK. The Rewind is next. Hey, it's BK, and it is time for you to unlock your inner champion. The place for you to do so is over with my friends at Victory Men's Health. They have 4 great locations across the St. Louis area, and you can check out all they have to offer online today at victorymenshealth.com. There is a lot that they have to offer over there, whether it's low testosterone symptoms that you've been feeling. You're not getting quite the same amount out of your workouts. Maybe you're feeling a little tired throughout the day. You don't have that same energy and verve for life. Well, they could help you out with that at Victory Men's Health. They also have red light therapy programs. They have cardiovascular testing. For me, it was the micronutrient labs that I was able to do. I went in there, got my consultation, and then they talked to me about what the best plan would be. They personalized it for me to give me my, to make me the best version of myself once again. They could do the same thing for you. Again, low testosterone, weight loss goals, sexual health, red light therapy. It's a lot to offer at Victory Men's Health. Book that first appointment online today at Victory Men's Health and online at victorymenshealth.com. The getaway day lineup did exactly what we expected it to do. The Cardinals lose 4-1 on the road today in Miami. They did score a run, though. Ivan Herrera with the homer in the 9th inning, Alex. They lose 4-1, wrapping up that series, heading back home after an off day tomorrow, starting up a series this weekend against the Marlins. If you guys missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all sponsored by
Shea Fedor Company.
When you go over to the YouTube page, what happened?
We've already played the Marlins. We play the Mariners next.
Did I say Marlins?
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah. YouTube.com/101ESPN.
I know, you didn't react. I heard we're playing the Marlins next. I went, nah, that's wrong.
Close enough.
Starts with an M, though.
That's okay. You gave a score and an update of a score that didn't happen, so we've all have our hiccups.
Oh, T-Bone. You're talking about T-Bone at the game where...
Yeah, you don't do updates, man.
Okay. YouTube.com/101ESPN STL. That is where you can go to find the latest edition of the Last Minute Blues podcast.
Or as BK like to call it, sloppy seconds.
I give Alex a lot of crap. This was a really good episode. They had Doug Armstrong on the show. Alex, what was your biggest takeaway? For anybody that has not seen it yet, your biggest takeaway from your conversation with Army today?
The direction of this team. He's talked about the 3-year term outlook, and he told us today that he believes that they are a team that can contend for a playoff spot. So I think that really kind of points this team in the direction of where they're going to go. But we also got into a lot of other things that we didn't talk about today, like he gave a comparison in terms of a general manager to Alexander Steen and what he thinks he'll be. He gave a comparison to Jake Neighbors, which I thought was really insightful. So we had a really interesting conversation about wrapping up this season and then moving into the offseason for the Blues.
All available for you right now. YouTube.com/101ESPN STL. We will have a new edition of the Redbird Report tomorrow. We will record that after our show here, so you can also find that over there. Be sure to subscribe and download the BK and Ferrario podcast feed as well. That's the easiest way if you want the audio format to get the Last Minute Blues podcast, the Redbird Report, and everything, of course, that we do here on BK and Ferrario. The 101 ESPN app is always available for you as well. It is free to download, super easy to use, and it is sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Cardinals off tonight and tomorrow. They'll be back in action on Friday. We'll break that thing down for you. It sounds as though they are planning to get that 6-man rotation going once again. We will discuss that tomorrow here on BK and Ferrario. We will also be joined by Joey Vitale. For Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We'll join you again tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane is next here on 101 ESPN.